Okay, good afternoon. It is Monday, February 22nd, and we are here for a workshop. On the agenda today, we have increased workforce success for 90 minutes, FY22 budget update, 30 minutes, agenda review of the February 23rd, 2021 regular agenda. Also today, Dr. Atkins will not be attending this meeting, and on his behalf, we will have Dr. Pruitt, who is multitasking today. She'll be down here first for a presentation, and then she'll move up to the top. So thank you, and could you please introduce yourself when you come up? Thank you.
Thank you, and good afternoon, board members. Appreciate your having us here again today to continue our review of Envision 2030, and we are talking about Objective 4 today, which is increasing workforce success. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Pruitt and the Human Resources team.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, board members. We are very excited for this opportunity to talk with you about workforce success and all of the work that the Human Resources Division does on a day-to-day basis. This is a particularly timely presentation to you because, quite frankly, the work that my team has been able to accomplish in the midst of COVID has been extraordinary. And I'm hoping you're going to see that as we go through this presentation, and the amount of work and the amount of pivoting that went on for us to successfully navigate and continue to navigate through this pandemic has really shown the skills and the great work that the team has done. And these folks, most of them will be coming up and will be able to share their information relative to their department and its focus and relevance to the overall workforce success. And as they come up, before they begin their presentation, they will introduce themselves at that time when they start to go through their part of the presentation. Just to sort of re-engage us with workforce success, here is the targets or goals that we have relative to workforce success. And you're going to see that everything we do really does have relevance related to the success of our workforce. As you know, we began with Vision 2020 and then have come to where we are today with Envision 2030, and looking really to just recruit, retain, do all of those things that will allow our primary work, which is student achievement. As most of you know, we embarked several years ago on our journey with Lean Six Sigma and doing our continuous improvement work through starting with our feedback from Sterling and then embarking on many green belt projects and a black belt project to allow us to continuously improve, again, not just for this year, but for the last several years. This is a representation to sort of illustrate to you that there are key work processes. Those are the things that we do each and every day, basically to keep the district running relative to the workforce. And then we have projects and action plans that allow us to improve that work, enhance that work, or just in general do a better job with some of our key work processes. And this year, as I said, everything kind of layered with COVID. So not only were we doing our day-to-day, but we had to pivot and go electronic with so many different things and address the needs of our employees in so many different ways. It really was quite incredible, the work that was accomplished. We have many KPIs and metrics that we utilize. These are what we call our most important, wildly important goals and measures that we're looking at relative to seeing if we are on target with the work that we're doing in human resources. And again, we have been working diligently to enhance our work and increase our responsiveness to our stakeholders, which for this particular presentation is all of our employees and our prospective employees and our retirees. Again, we have primary work processes. Those are the things that we do each and every day. We have the measures for those processes, and then we have the priorities that continue to allow us to enhance our work. So I just kind of wanted to frame that for you as each of these departments go through and highlight the work that they have done. But in a general sense, before we get to the departments, we know that the number one factor related to student achievement is the teacher in the classroom. And so the focus in the Black Belt Project several years ago was to look at why teachers were leaving the district. And so out of that work, one of the things that we started was a school climate survey to allow us to gauge information that we could use to assist our administrators in doing a better job at how they're interacting and working with their staff. In this case, we started with the teachers relative to this climate survey. And this year's survey was conducted in the fall of this year. We were very excited with our response rate, which went up from 59% up to about 75%. So I just want to say, for surveys, that's pretty incredible. And so you might think, well, of course you had a high response rate, Angela. Everyone was upset about COVID, and everyone wanted to tell and whine, and that's not at all what happened. What you're going to see, actually, when you look at the results of these climate surveys, is we had 81% of those teachers that filled that out that said that they would recommend that a friend work at their school location. So in spite of all the challenges that teachers are dealing with, they still are proud of the work that they're doing and were positive in nature relative to their opinion of their particular place that they work. We are in the process of distributing those to principals sort of as we speak. We've started, but not everybody has theirs yet. One of the things that we looked at, we asked, are you planning on leaving the district within 1 to 2 years? And if you are, what would be the primary reason that you would leave? And so you can see here this representation, either retirement or it has to do with the salary and the pay, and then general working conditions. So again, that's folks that are telling us that they are anticipating leaving within the next 1 to 2 years. One of the things that we included this year was, because we know how hard everybody is working, and we really wanted to kind of do some positivity, if you will, and you can see that the thing that the teachers are most proud of is things to do with students and how their students are being resilient and how the students are surviving this thing we call COVID. So we were very excited to see that. So again, looking at if you would recommend a friend to work at your location, and we looked at it from teachers who terminated as well as teachers who transferred. Another area that we also, place that we collect data is through our exit interviews. And now we continue to improve the feedback that we're getting. So now we request the exit interviews occur, whether they're transferring to a new work location or whether they're leaving the district altogether. And you can see there what those exit reasons. And again, this is focused on what the employee filled out, not the piece that the administrators filled out. This was the results from the folks that transferred but did not leave the district. And you can see there, again, promotions, opportunity for professional growth. Those are some of the reasons that folks were giving for the reason that they transferred to another location. Because we have seen such success with this process and with receiving this feedback, one of the projects that, Black Belt projects that is just started and is underway is to do this same type of survey with our non-instructional folks, again, to focus on the retention and what are the risk factors that cause folks to want to leave the district, and then, just having them engaged and involved in the work that they're doing in a positive way. So that will be, and as we get those results and we bring that, we will share that information with you. This is sort of our timeline to be able to get that project underway. One of the areas that we also had to pivot pretty quickly, that's kind of an overall, has to do with the student assessments and everything. People think, oh, well, we're just not going to do VAM, or oh, there's the domino effects of any of those kind of decisions really are far-reaching. And so that was one work where Lisa Vasquez really had to do some dancing and agility to try to make that all work and to meet what the state required, as well as the decisions that we made at the local level. Also, in addition to the COVID hotline, Lisa Vasquez worked as kind of the employee COVID hotline, where she helped with employees, administrators, and so forth, and also help them navigate through, and even still does now, relative to any changes that are occurring because of COVID. So that's kind of the general sense, relative overview of workforce success. But what I really want to do is dive deep into each of the departments so that you can really see how they contribute to the overall success. And one of the things we're going to start with is the Department of Staffing and Talent Management, because that's basically the life cycle of the employee, from the time they get hired to the time they separate from the district, everything in between. I just want you to think about a number you're going to see here in Heather's presentation about the number of transactions, the number of PAFs, and just kind of put that in context and thinking about all the stuff that has to occur when that happens. So I'm going to turn it over to Heather.
Good afternoon, board members. I'm Heather Leonard, the Director of Staffing and Talent Management. I hope to share with you today some highlights on how our team supports prospective and current employees in all phases of those life cycles that Dr. Pruitt mentioned. Some of our key responsibilities include job postings, screening and monitoring of employee credentials, and hiring and onboarding of new employees, as well as processing all those employment transactions that happen within that life cycle of the employee. I'm most proud of how our staffing and talent management team is teamed together between our analysts and our specialists to provide support, really individual support to each employee at a school site. They're assigned a particular school or department, and then each employee has a direct HR contact to reach out to. So they really form relationships with their employees at their locations, and that would include the director or manager or principal of that department as well. At the onset of the pandemic in the spring, as you know, most employees were working remotely, and we had to quickly adapt or create new processes so that folks could continue to work on projects with the district, including hiring staff, so that we had teachers and staff in classrooms when students were ready to come back. So we had to create some electronic employment documents, and people had to have a way to submit some of those confidential documents to HR. So we created a document submission form so they could securely submit those as they were requesting leave of absences or Family Medical Leave Act benefits. And this was to ensure that people were paid appropriately and that they had access to all those necessary benefits. One of the other things that we had to make sure we accomplished was that employees were needing to access benefits under the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act, as well as the Emergency Family Medical Leave Act, which was a result of the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. So most of them were experiencing in some form quarantine or childcare related issues, and it was important so they could access those benefits and not have an interruption or pay of benefits. We had recently implemented quite a few electronic processes prior to COVID, but we had to continue to refine those, and so some had to go live in their current state. Our partial rollout of our new employee EPAF, which was the transaction used to hire new employees, had already gone live, but we had to make that available for all transactions, so we had to quickly roll that out. Prior to that, we had implemented an online new employee orientation, which was used to onboard new employees, and we had a goal to reduce the time it took to get teachers in the classroom as well as all other staff Initially, we had averaged 8 days that it took from the time that an employee was given the approval to start until they actually completed their orientation, and that was further reduced to 3.6 days, and it's now under 3 days. In the summer, Dr. Pruitt had mentioned, as folks were starting to come back to the school year, they had concerns about reporting to the site, and we spent a lot of hours counseling employees, making sure they are aware of all the available options to them. So the snapshot of some of our support to our employees, that chart on the prior slide represents some of those initiatives and the volume of the work. So I mentioned the EPAF and the PAF submission form, which is the document that's used to process employment transactions. Prior to this new process that we created, that paper document had to travel through our interoffice mail, so it had to touch the hands of a lot of folks. It took a lot of man-hours to travel that document, to get processed and then get through, and then be scanned into the employee file. So with the creation of this, the documents flowed electronically from the school site to the departments, and then it got automatically committed to the employee's personnel file. So we didn't have to automatically scan that. We could just have that go in systematically. So that saved quite a bit of time and employee resources. We processed over 8,000 PAFs that were electronic since July 1st, and the average days it takes to complete them is represented here. The annual average is 18.64 days, and we're working to refine and further reduce that time. Now that we have it electronic, we can kind of pinpoint some of our pain points and some areas that we have waste, and we can further refine those.
And you'll notice the uptick at the end there of more days, because when you factor in the winter break and the Thanksgiving break, it creates longer time because of the missed work days in between.
We support both temporary certified educators and professional certified educators, and really when it comes time for their certificate expiration, we try to send not only individual reminders, but we go as far as giving them an individual check sheet to let them know if they have any outstanding requirements, and it really outlines everything that they have. We've increased those supports over the last several years, and we plan to further increase those, and that's in an effort to really retain those individuals, and our goal is to reduce the number of outstanding requirements when it comes time for that expiration of their certificate. We also provide very individual support to our Tier 3 schools. We do an individual credential plan for each of those employees, and we set targets for them to hit certain milestones so that they don't get off track, and they can help prioritize what they need to do so that their certificate expiration, when it approaches, they're ready to move to that professional certificate.
Is that you good? Next, okay.
So as you can imagine, with the pandemic, the unemployment rate soared. This chart represents some of the data that we have for a couple peak times. Prior year's data is on here as well as the current year data, and you can see the change, which is quite significant. Our unemployment manager works with group management services, who handles the day-to-day operations of filing for our claims and protesting claims that are submitted on behalf of the district. We review claim eligibility and work very closely with them, and typically have an opportunity to protest claims before claims are paid out. This year with the pandemic, and they had some problems with the unemployment system, as you probably heard on some news networks. So they went ahead and paid out claims to the Department of Economic Opportunity without the claims coming to the district or having an opportunity to protest those claims. And the district had to pay those invoices that came in. We had to pay half of that amount. Prior to the pandemic, we had an opportunity to protest them. So we're working now as the charges are starting to come in, and we're protesting those claims. A lot of them were claims that we noticed were active employees. So we wanted to make sure we also protected the employees' data. So we sent out notices to all active employees that were on those invoices, just to make them aware that a filing had occurred in their name in case there was a potential fraud, because there was a lot of fraud on the rise. So we've been protesting those. We received lots of responses back for the fraud, and we've been working with our management team to try to get credits back on those as well, and we'll continue to do that. And then just a quick look to the future. Some of the things that we plan to do are to expand some monitoring tools to both employees and principals when it comes to employees' credentials, so they can help have more tools available to look at what they have upcoming that are due, so that they can keep on track with their renewal and their certificate expiration requirements. We plan to refine more of those electronic workflow processes, make them more efficient. And then we want to continue to innovate some more things, such as our Family Medical Leave Act, and make that electronic so it's a workflow and employees are notified of their rights, and every party that needs to have a part in that is notified timely. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Heather. Next, we're going to focus on insurance and benefits and its relation to workforce success.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bonnie McFarland. I'm the Director for Insurance and Benefits Management for the Lee County School District. I just wanted to start by giving you a quick overview of our organizational chart. We have 5 district staff who work directly on employee benefits. We have 2 district staff who work on our employee wellness programs, and we have 1 district staff person assigned to our district insurance. We also have several on-site representatives from our Johns Eastern and Aetna vendors. So I'm going to go through each one of these areas and the work that is happening in them. So the benefits management team does oversee 13 different benefit programs, and within each of those benefit programs there are multiple options. Most recently, we've added the high deductible health plan with the health savings account, the accident and critical illness insurance, and the legal plan. The most important part of this particular slide is that last item, which is that the options allow employees to customize their benefits. So employees can mix and match whatever works for them and to create their own individualized benefits plan. There are a number of functional areas within the insurance area. That includes the operation of PeopleSoft. So our department manages the configuration and the testing for all of the benefits that occur within PeopleSoft, and that includes the annual uploading of open enrollment and any changes that are required of that. Additionally, Heather did mention we're over 8,000 transactions. Every one of those transactions is adjudicated by the benefits administration system for any changes that would impact the employee's benefits as a result of those changes to their employment. We also maintain a robust website that contains all the benefit information employees may need and any forms that they would need to file for benefits. We handle the billing of employees and retirees. So if an employee goes on a leave of absence and their benefit deductions cannot come out of their paycheck, those benefit deductions do still have to be paid. We also have over 600 retirees who've elected to continue their benefits in retirement, and those retirees are also billed for those insurances since they're no longer receiving a paycheck for deductions. We also assist employees with mid-year benefit changes for things like marriage and babies, and we do weekly communications with our multiple benefit vendors to make sure everyone's enrollment is accurately reflected with the vendor. We've had a couple exciting employee wins recently. The first couple of lines here are places we have partnered with our information technology and information services. We were able to create confirmation statements for employee benefit programs. Before, when employees enrolled in PeopleSoft, they hit the submit button and everything happened in the background, but the employee didn't get any kind of confirmation of that selection. So with the benefit confirmation statements, when that employee makes a benefit selection, either during open enrollment or as a new hire, when they hit that final submit button, they will receive an email confirmation of all the benefits they've selected. It's greatly reduced confusion and concern by employees that their benefits were in fact selected, because if they got that confirmation statement, they know they went through. We also worked to redesign the PeopleSoft benefits enrollment page to add some grid lines to assist for tracking across a page on a computer screen. We noticed we were receiving a lot of errors from employees by clicking the wrong button as they tracked across. So that was a partnership with our IT and IS to make that edit, which was very beneficial to employees. We have a couple areas where we've partnered with our payroll team to make some adjustments around our supplemental retirement. Specifically, we are now receiving electronic salary reduction agreements. Prior to this, they were received via paper. Receiving them electronically obviously allows us to get them quicker and process them quicker and have the employees' desired deductions come out of their check. We also worked with the payroll team to make the adjustments to those elections through the PeopleSoft payroll system to eliminate the paper and the rework for that. And last but not least, our benefit connections were designed and distributed by the Insurance and Benefits Department to educate employees on the available benefits to them. Next up, I'm going to talk about our wellness program. We are very proud of our program, and it has received multiple awards. A couple that I'd just like to highlight for you. We were 8 straight years of a Platinum Award for the American Heart Association before they discontinued their award program. We've received the Gold Level Aetna Making a Difference Award, and we are, as a district, we received in 2020 the Blue Zones Approved website, which is an internationally recognized award around work-life balance and promotion of healthy alternatives and options when it comes to lifestyle, nutrition, et cetera. The wellness program was created over a decade ago with the goal of positively impacting employees' health and reducing the cost to the insurance program. A couple of highlights that we've had in regarding the program is we've been specifically working on a few key areas. Improving our wellness visits, which have gone from 18.5% to 27% of employees who are receiving those on an annual basis. A reduction in diabetes among our employees, which has dropped from 14% when we began this initiative to 7.5%. And a reduction in hypertension, which has dropped from 44% to 15%. The diabetes saves approximately $4.2 million annually by eliminating those employees who are diabetic and are using diabetic supplies and seeing physicians and that sort of thing. And the hypertension, for the same reasons, eliminates approximately $3.2 million annually from our health insurance. In looking at our wellness program itself, we do calculate our annual ROI specific to the programs themselves. So the ROI is the impact of that particular year's wellness programs on our health plan. So it's important as you look at these numbers, we've saved between $1.3 to $3.4 million a year with our program over the last 5 years. And it's important to note that these calculations are direct financial impacts to the health plan. There are no addition of numbers for productivity or absenteeism avoidance. So sometimes when you see wellness numbers, you'll see that those two things calculated in for the value of the wellness program. And those things are valuable, but for the purposes of our assessment, we're looked just at the ROI of the program itself on the health plan. And with the support of the Green Agile team, we were able to create a wellness portal a few years ago. That's an electronic location where employees can go on, see all the courses that are available, and register for the courses they wish to participate in. Having that portal has greatly increased our ability to do data analysis on our programs to see which ones are the most successful as well as the most popular with our employees. And last, we have district insurance. The district is essentially a mini insurance company. We are self-insured with what's called a reinsurer. That means for smaller claims, we handle those in-house with our Johns Eastern team. And then if a claim becomes particularly large, we do have a reinsurance company for a financial cap on the losses for a particular claim. As I mentioned, Johns Eastern is our third-party administrator, and we do have 3 individuals on site who help adjudicate claims under our district insurance plan. And this lovely picture is all the insurances that we purchase and manage. There's over 15 different types of insurances, and all of those items come with the reinsurers as well as the claims that are handled in-house by the Johns Eastern team. A couple of district insurance wins I want to bring to your attention. Under workers' compensation, you have something called a mod rate or a modification rate. This is a rate that's assigned to you by the state based on a very complicated formula that takes into account the frequency and the severity of injuries and illnesses that occur in your workplace. And as you can see, from 2018 to 2020, that mod rate has dropped from 1.5 to 1.14. And additionally, to the claims cost and that have been saved as a result of that drop, we also implemented an electronic student incident form that has eliminated a paper-based form, again, that had to be ponied through the district. Overall, the department has taken on several initiatives that were for the entire insurance and benefits department. We've recently established our Laserfish repository to begin electronic retention of records. Up to now, most of our records were maintained in paper and in filing cabinets, and that takes up a lot of room and makes evaluating that data difficult. We did open an employee portal on our district website, so we partnered with the communications team and built out that entire benefits section of the employee portal. We created specific email accounts for benefits, wellness, and workers' compensation. The idea behind this was that you don't have to know who does what you need. You just have to know that this is the area that you need, and then we'll route it to the correct person. Additionally, we have multiple people who are managing those email boxes, which speeds up communication time with employees and reduces the amount of time they're waiting for an answer. And as Andy will talk about later, we've had a significant increase in our ADA committee membership. Heather and I are both members of that committee, and we have seen a significant increase to volume, which has put a significant demand on our time. So that's what we've been up to, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Bonnie. So next up, we're going to talk, Mr. Rothenberg is going to talk to you a little bit about compensation, job descriptions, labor relations, all of which are an important foundation relative to having a successful workforce. So, Mr. Rothenberg.
Good afternoon. So my department is a relatively small department. There are 4 people, including myself, and I'm the only administrator in the department. We serve all 12,000 or so employees of the district. And there are 4 main areas of focus that we put our attention towards. That's job classification management, our compensation, the terms of employment, which include our collective bargaining agreements, and then providing customer service in the way of labor relations support. One of the biggest things that we focused on at the outset of taking on some of these projects was working to improve our job classification management, which includes updating job descriptions, some of which had not been touched since the 1970s. They were in all different formats. Some of them were current and up to date. Others had kind of fallen by the wayside. And obviously, for legal compliance reasons, we want to make sure that all of those are at least reviewed on a regular basis. There's several metrics that we have chosen to focus on as we're doing that, and we've segmented each year to focus on more and more detailed portions of that. At first, we looked at just trying to make sure that job descriptions were updated within the past 5 years, and then we started to look at high focus areas, which would be job descriptions with 100+ employees working underneath them, and then have moved to other areas of high need.
Good.
2 of the main areas of concern and interest when it comes to job descriptions are the minimum qualifications and the knowledge, skills, and abilities portion. The Society for Human Resources managers has specific language about what those should convey to employees in terms of what their roles and responsibilities and expectations are. So we focused on making sure that our minimum qualifications have some standardized and aligned language as it relates to the way that we're conveying that information for applicant screening purposes, which includes the interview process. We've done the same thing with knowledge, skills, and abilities, and working to align that with performance evaluations, professional development, and other pre-employment assessments. These are some of the metrics that we look at when we talk about compensation. Again, this can get pretty granular, but there's the compa ratios, which are how we compare internally and to the market. And in order to provide competitive compensation, we need to be looking at that information constantly. which we pull from a variety of sources a number of times a year based on the availability of that data, and look at where the district stands and try to project out where we will be after we go through bargaining and implementation of updates to our salary schedules. As I mentioned, some of our benchmarking data comes from the Economic Research Institute, which pulls U.S. Department of Labor data. We also use Florida Department of Education survey data, and then our own internal information. We're focusing on equity and competitiveness, and have been able to take that data alongside some of the anecdotal information that we're provided through some of our collective bargaining and bargaining-related committees, and really dial in on what is it that people are telling us beyond just the cost of living is going up. There's specific areas that we've noted where people have been disadvantaged by changes in the law or circumstances at the time of their hire, and so we've worked diligently with our union counterparts to correct some of those historic oversights. This is a graphic that illustrates the concept of total compensation, which is something that we have tried to convey to everyone who's part of our welcome aboard onboarding that professional development provides. And that's to show people that your pay is about more than just what you see in your direct deposit. Compensation also includes some of those most common benefits like retirement, health care, and then the district's portion of FICA Med contributions. There's also the payroll tax portion, but this is what the district pays in to those on behalf of its employees. In looking at the terms of employment, again, we have a set of metrics that we look at. We were recently discussing these with the Florida Education Negotiators Association, and they were impressed that our district has decided to study some of these things as closely as we have, and have discussed sharing that information with other districts in an effort to help them improve their labor relations and the efficiency of their bargaining processes. So in terms of aligning those terms of employment, when we started, about a quarter of the articles in each of the contracts were aligned. They varied widely. One of the things that we were able to accomplish by aligning those over the past several years is that we're able to work on standardized training and standardizing processes where there might be some bumps in the road, accounting for exceptions and differences based on collective bargaining units. It also aided us greatly in putting information out to employees in the spring of last year when we first went through some of the COVID-related challenges. We were able to draft joint communications quickly that applied to all employee groups and gave people the broad strokes of what was happening and how the contract was being interpreted in light of some of the changes that we were experiencing. As I mentioned, this shows some of our data as it relates to bargaining. The FY19 year spike is because that was a 2-year contract with TALC and SPALC. So in FY20, we did not spend any time at the bargaining table, but historically we have reduced the amount of time from start to board approval of those contracts over the past 5 or 6 years. And as far as customer service, by working with immediate supervisors and our counterparts in the union, we have been able to look at these metrics and really focus on reducing the number of employee grievances, and some of that has been accomplished by providing more focused training to certain employee groups. As you can see here, we have, for the past several years, had about 5 grievances that have been district-level grievances. That's down significantly, and that's the direct result of working with our union counterparts to develop training to provide to hiring managers, immediate supervisors, to help resolve some of the most common issues that we were encountering. We're also partnering with TALC and SPALC to come up with something to help them as they train their in-building and on-site reps. Our Management 101 training for transportation, food services, building supervisors, and others has been a big part of that. And then as far as the career ladder goes, this has been several years' worth of work, but you can see that we have provided training at every location, most in person and some electronically, but through that training on how the career ladder works, we've been able to increase the number of people moving from career to accomplished, which is a big task. And if you ask anyone who's gone through that, there's a lot of work that goes into that. So we're pretty encouraged that this year we had almost twice as many people move from career to accomplished as in the prior year.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Rothenberg. We appreciate that. Next up, we're going to talk to you about the work that Professional Standards does. When you are one of the largest employers in the county, you have a lot of work to do relative to people that are applying for jobs and looking at that. And then when you have this many employees, people unfortunately are going to make poor choices, and that is going to need to be addressed. So Mr. Brown, if you'll take us through Professional Standards.
I will. Good afternoon, Board. I'm Andy Brown, Director of Professional Standards. Just a quick snapshot here of the staff in Professional Standards. You can see there are 5 of us, including myself. Just wanted to make you all aware that the 2 coordinators in Professional Standards have very specific roles and responsibilities. One of them is primarily responsible for fingerprint background screening and the ADA process, and then the other coordinator is primarily responsible for employee misconduct investigations and assists with consultation with site-based administrators, principals, and I'll talk more about that in just a minute. These are sort of the main categories of activity within Professional Standards. I'm obviously not going to read them to you. I think I can speak to each of them in the next slides and hopefully elaborate on them a bit. This is some information on background screening. What these numbers represent comparing last year to the current year to date are actual employment offers, or in the case of a student intern where they're invited into one of our schools or departments. These are actual background screenings and fingerprint reports that have been processed in our department, and you can get an idea of the volume there. We're also required by law to resubmit employee fingerprints every 5 years. If an employee's been with us for 10 years, their prints would have been resubmitted twice in that time frame, and you can see the volume there. Sorry.
That's all right. Good.
Just wanted to make you all aware of some of the activities that go into the background screening process. The first 2 sort of sections that you're looking at there from left to right are what happened during the applicant process. The district has a series of security questions embedded in our application. They're primarily focused on prior criminal history and prior employment-related issues that an applicant may have had. If they answer yes to any of those questions, a series of document requests are made, and we vet that against the board policies that are related to the background screening process, and if appropriate, advance them through. And the last section under new hire screening are the activities that take place. As you all know, we have decentralized hiring. Let's say a principal at a school says, I want to move forward and make an offer to this person. That last set of activities would take place, a level 2 screening, and we check a number of other resources to make sure that they're safe to begin work. We're also responsible for vendor and contractor badging through the Jessica Lunsford Act, and you get an idea here of the volume last year compared to this year to date. We're very proud of the districts. We have a little bit more stringent standard with respect to vendor contractor badging, and there are some cases where we do not allow vendors or contractors to provide services on our campus, always in the interest of staff and student safety. In the last couple of years, we've engaged in a fingerprint deletion project. In a nutshell, I think you'll get an idea that HR focuses significantly on data. To that end, we've done that with fingerprint deletion. We've identified a process to be able to delete inactive or defunct records that have a cost associated with them, and you can get an idea of the year-over-year savings there. And here, if you look at the red arrow, because of that fingerprint deletion project, we were actually able to return over $71,000 to finance last year as a result of those efforts, and we're very proud of that. We're also responsibility for the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, essentially requests for accommodations to be able to perform their jobs that employees make. You can see some of the background and foundation information there. Bonnie mentioned, and one of the things that I'm most proud of and relative to our process is we use a committee to vet those requests, and it includes members with certain expertise within HR. We also have a staff attorney on our committee that, allows for fidelity to the process, to the law, and to the rights of the employee. And it's a very interactive process with the employee and their supervisor also. And here you can see the COVID representation of ADA requests. Last year was a pretty typical year, actually a little bit more than normal. We had 26 formal ADA requests. Those were all conducted in person with that committee that I mentioned. This year we've processed over 285. That number is growing literally daily. And I'm very proud that we've been able to do that and always with an eye on benefit to the employee. We're also responsible for administering the employee drug testing program. You can see the 3 categories of testing that we do. Yeah, I don't know.
All right.
And here are just some numbers that give you an idea about the volume within each of those sort of subcategories: pre-employment screening, random screening, and reasonable suspicion testing. The thing to point out here, the difference under the random screening, those 2 numbers with the asterisk, it's kind of counterintuitive because we've had more testing already this year, and that's absolutely related to COVID also. We essentially stopped testing certain groups in March of last year and have picked up that quota and volume this year, and that's why there's the disparity there. Employee misconduct investigations. As you all know, we went through a really intensive and exhaustive process of reviewing policy, revising policy and processes that you all formalized back in October of this current school year. And so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail with that, but I wanted to give you some anecdotal information and data. One of the primary focuses of that process and policy review, as you all know, were employee due process rights. And Loudermill is the case law that addresses employee due process, and I'm very proud that from 2012 to the present, a time period that covers over 735 investigations, we've not had one Loudermill complaint ever. And we feel that is a good indication that we know how to do due process, and it's particularly representative of that when you consider that a vast majority or large number of the cases that we have are represented by the unions, whose job it is to ensure those due process rights. You get an idea of a comparison of the current year-to-date number of formal cases compared to the same time period last year. And the next little bullet point, we attribute that to the pandemic also, just to have the numbers be down slightly from last year. Site-based consultations, I really can't understate the significance of this. We do a significant amount of this daily, all of the staff in our office, but particularly myself and the 2 coordinators. We consult with site-based administrators, principals, supervisors across the district a lot, and on a vast number of topics, but primarily performance issues, discipline in terms of myself and Mr. Vasquez, and then ADA issues, alt duty, other things that Ms. Schaefer engages in. We're obligated by law to report what are called legally sufficient complaints to the Department of Education. Professional Practices Services is their investigative arm. Last year, we reported 74 cases, and 73 times PPS opened an investigation, and we believe that represents that we have a good assessment on legal sufficiency. And just for your awareness, the closest sister district in that same time period was Osceola, and they had 62 cases reported to PPS. This is a visual representation of one of our department improvement plan goals. The orange line and numbers represent the total number of formal investigations we have within professional standards year over year, and the blue line on the bottom are the total number of grievances post-outcome in our cases. And so as you can see, last year we had 92 cases and only 2 grievances. The year before, 110 and only 2. And our goal is to keep that below 2.25%. We believe that it's a representation of qualitative measure of our investigations, and it's something we're going to continue to monitor. This is just some demographic information we wanted to make the board aware of. It's a metric that we track. We don't have a formal project regarding it, but it's employee investigations by race. And we wanted you all to be aware of this so you can consider it and compare it to our general employee numbers. And then I mentioned the process we went through, policy and process revision around employee misconduct investigations. And as part of that, we polled 15 of our sister districts. And this is just anecdotal information and kind of highlights from them. I can tell you that across the board, our process is viewed as the example and the standard, not the other way around. The other districts were very envious of a number of practices we have in place. These are just a few of them. That we were constantly praised as being very employee-centric and employee-friendly. And one specific thing that they mentioned was they were envious of our relationships we have with our unions. That's it for me.
Yep. All right, thank you, Mr. Brown. Now, you can't have workforce success if you don't have a workforce. So Suzette Rivera is going to take us through all the goings-on in recruitment.
Thank you, Dr. Pruitt, and thank you, board members. So what you see up here is our recruitment department. We're made up currently of 17 members, and we all have a role in the recruitment and engagement of future employees as well as our current employees. During a really unique recruitment season, these numbers really represent a lot for us. So the number 1,030 represents the number of connections that were made at various events. And this could have been engagement with potential bus drivers, potential teachers, really anybody that was interested in some sort of employment with the school district. The number 334, those are the number of talent reservations that we extended to potential teachers. And a talent reservation is what we formerly called, most recently called a contingency contract. 238, this is a number we're extremely proud of. This is the number that were converted from those talent reservations to hire. So those were 238 new teachers, despite the pandemic and everything that we were challenged with this past year, actually came on board to join the school district of Lee County.
I also just want to make the point, when you're looking at the data from the other departments and the numbers don't equal recruitment, it's because there's a lot of people that come to us that we didn't recruit, right? They're not part of the efforts of recruitment, but they still are part of the data and the numbers for the other departments. So I just want to make that point in case you're wondering, well, only 1,000, you said it was X number. That's, again, because we have what's called passive people who they just apply for the jobs that are advertised, but we haven't taken a recruitment event that would be part of what Suzette's talking to you about today.
Thank you. Our recruitment team really supports 6 different customer types, and the first 3 are listed here for you. So career changers, teachers, and guest teachers, and the initiatives that we implemented to help attract those employee groups. And the next 3 are leadership, high school students, and support staff. And in the few minutes that I have with you today, I'm really going to spotlight on our high school students as we're thinking about innovative recruitment strategies and improving workforce success. So our department is able to offer 2 different types of scholarships. So we have our Suncoast Grow Your Own and our Legislative Grow Your Own scholarships. Both scholarships provide opportunities to high school students, paraprofessionals, and students enrolled in our local universities. And in total, these scholarships are going to allow us to have 25 new teachers in the district and then 9 teachers retained in Lee County.
There it go. There it goes.
The next one.
Yep.
Okay. And to ensure that we have extensive outreach through marketing our scholarships, we have to make sure that we're present and intentional. So our coordinator, Mrs. Melissa Johnson, she oversees these programs, and her hard work has really driven a great number of students to apply for our scholarships. She was visible on campuses as much as possible, and she also integrated with our students and teachers in our teaching academies. Obviously, as our student demographics have shifted in Lee County, we recognize the importance of hiring staff who reflect our students. So the continued work through the Minority Recruitment and Retention Committee has been instrumental. This year, our focus is the retention of our teachers. And we partnered with Mr. Jarrett Eady and looked at the feedback from the State Equity Report, where we saw the disparities between male and female teachers, as well as teachers of color. Using that data, we were able to establish affinity groups with our new teachers, and our purpose really is to engage them and find out what brought them to Lee County and what is keeping them here, so that we're able to create some recruitment strategies that are intentional in the recruitment and attraction of diverse staff. Obviously, we cannot do this work alone in recruitment, and we're really grateful with our university and community partners that are provided on this slide. Each year, as recruitment reflects on the work that was done, something that is really important to look at is our return on investment. It's the first bullet on this slide. What we do is we look at each event, look at the number of talent reservations extended, and how many of those were converted to hires. Using that information, we actually plan for a recruitment season so that we are making sure we are attending the correct events that produce the most hires. And so looking back at our customer groups that we support, they're each listed here again with the impact of our work. And again, continuing with the high school students, I think on the next slide.
Next one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. We have 7 students that actually received scholarships from the programs that we mentioned earlier, so we're excited to say we are monitoring them. We're still engaging with them as they are enrolled in their College of Education, making sure that they are on time, they're registering for classes, and that they are ready to join our team in the future. So I want to leave you with the words and the hearts of 2 scholarship recipients. Both of these students graduated from our teaching academies, and they are currently enrolled in our local colleges and universities, and they're definitely going to be coming back to Lee County, so here's the future of Lee County. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzette. And to round out our workforce success discussion, Dr. Martin is going to talk with you about all the goings-on in professional development, and Ms. Harrell will shed a little light on the leadership portion of that. But for the workforce to be successful, we have to have good supports in place, and we have to have professional development that continue to support our employees and to enhance them and to allow them to be successful in the work that they do. Dr. Martin?
Hey, good afternoon. I'm Dr. Helen Martin, the Assistant Director of Professional Development. The Professional Development Department is a small but mighty team that provides customer service to all employees of the organization in the design, advertisement, delivery, evaluation, and tracking of all things related to professional development. The work of professional development is driven by our customers. The large volume of new hires, particularly those who come to us through a non-traditional path, we call them career changers, plus a quick pivot to the virtual environment for teaching, for work, and also professional development, as well as several legislative changes in the area of reading, presented many opportunities for our team to grow and rethink the way we provide support for our customers to ensure workforce success. Our support, again, reaches 6 key customer groups. The first 3 are listed here. I'd like to take a moment to highlight some of our particular innovative programs for you. So a program of particular pride is our New to Teaching Academy. This program has been in place for 4 years. It originally started to enroll participants who came to us from a career changer background. We've expanded enrollment to incorporate College of Education graduates because they've expressed an interest to have more hands-on learning opportunities. This past summer, we obviously had to rethink that program to take place virtually, and that was accomplished through 10 days of live Zoom sessions that were mediated with team time as well as independent work time for our participants. The support for our New to Teaching Academy participants extends beyond that summer academy into the school year through job-embedded coaching and support that's provided through our learning and leadership teachers. The content and the format of that New to Teaching Academy has been so popular, we've embedded that content within our new teacher orientation, as well as our monthly trainings for Apple's teachers. We know our career changers need additional support beyond the first year to meet the requirements for professional certification. So we were granted approval by the Florida Department of Education in 2019 to offer a professional development certification program. That program enables our participants to meet all of the coursework requirements to move from a temporary to a professional certificate through a job-embedded pathway. And we can't leave out our experienced teachers. We provide them with robust and differentiated PD opportunities to achieve their career ladder goals, as well as a job-embedded structure to meet our reading requirements. The success of our new teachers really depends upon the strength of the coaches, peer collaborative teachers, and leaders within their schools. Last spring, our clinical educator course was highlighted by the Florida Department of Education as a model course for other districts, as our content was already delivered online prior to the pandemic, as well as we require our future coaches and Apple's mentors to show that they can effectively coach a teacher through the submission of a video coaching as part of that class. Our professional learning for school leaders takes place in collaboration with academic services. This year, we focused our PD on building a safe and supportive culture for students, faculty, and staff. As we know, no one can learn if they do not feel safe in their current environment, as well as monthly principal meetings and assistant principal trainings. I would be remiss if I left out the remote work we provided for support staff in the spring of 2020, which was 8 weeks of virtual PD opportunities for 1,900 participants that focused on the area of customer service, quality, continuous improvement tools, school safety, Microsoft Office, Google Chrome, and mental health awareness. So our support expands really beyond workshops and trainings that we offer for individuals to really build a system of support for our employees in order to achieve their career goals. Each of the pools listed on this slide follow a similar process with a district-wide email notice that goes out of the pool opening, an orientation for participants to give them instructions on how to be successful with that process, the assessment process itself, one-on-one coaching for feedback for candidates who are not successful, as well as the opportunity to apply for positions limited to each pool. We also try to target exclusive high-quality PD opportunities for members in those pools so they can continue to grow and develop professionally. I'll turn it over to Ms. Harrell to provide more information on the Leadership and Talent Acquisition Manual.
Good afternoon, Board. I'm so excited to have this opportunity to speak to you just for a couple of minutes about the leadership portion and the guiding force for all of us. I know you've seen this as our Leadership, Talent Acquisition, and Development Manual. It's very important to us. Second only to the importance of teachers, right, is that we have great leaders in place. If we want to continue to move student achievement forward, we have to focus on the work that we do with the administrators here in the district. I want to focus on just a couple of things with you because I think those are the things that we've been working on diligently this year. I want to focus and highlight on the Level 2 certification process that we use with our assistant principals. It's how they become and are trained to finally one day sit in the seat and lead our schools. And so out of that, from that, they start in the assistant principal pool, they move in, they get a position, and they go through our program. I am able to now, electronically, we enroll them, and I can see exactly where they are in their development program. For those 2 pools, we now have that. In October, we offer the assessment for the assistant principal pool, and in February, the principal pool. We did survey our newest assistant principals this year. We want to find out how prepared did you feel that you were to assume that job. So we've got that survey out. We're looking forward to seeing those results. But because of some of the feedback we've already received, we're going to be working specifically with the candidates in the assistant principal pool. They will also be put into an electronic capture system, and because continuous improvement is so important, we're going to ask them to go in there and we're going to monitor what they're doing towards continuing being a leader. All of the principals at the schools, I'm going to be providing them a list of all the candidates that they have in their buildings so that they can work with those candidates as they hopefully will be able to continue their journey and become an assistant principal and give them some leadership opportunities. Again, working with all of our pool groups because workforce success, it begins with teachers, but we've got to have great leaders too.
Thank you.
This work would not be possible without the collaboration and support of our colleagues in our district departments, our school partners, as well as our community partners. Special thanks to the Foundation and Suncoast Credit Union, who provide us funds that Title II cannot afford to purchase all of the extras for our events, like the swag, and I can't forget food. This is a snapshot of the volume of work tracked and monitored through our department since July 1st, 2020. No, we do not have 131,000 teachers, but we have repeat customers who have come back to attend additional professional development. So how do we know if the work we're doing is making an impact? All PD through our district is evaluated at a level 1, and professional development opportunities that are directly related to compliance items are evaluated at level 2. And then PD opportunities that really directly relate to workforce success are ongoing. Those are evaluated at a level 3 and a level 4 to determine return on investment as well as impact over time. As you can see from these results, our customers are very pleased with the professional development provided to them by our team. This is significant because in national surveys on educator perception of their professional learning, only about 30% of educators feel strongly about the PD provided to them. So our numbers look a lot different than that national data. We analyze our results in relationship to the customer groups we support, so I'd like to just take a moment to highlight some of our impact. So we found that our new to teaching academy graduates experience a greater retention rate than their peers who do not participate in the academy. Since 2019, we've also had 35 alt-lead program completers, and they have themselves saved thousands of dollars that they would have otherwise spent in college tuition to meet the requirements for certification. And then also, as a result of their retention in the district, we've experienced a $445,000 cost savings directly related to their retention. Based on survey data of our new teachers, we can see that our work with peer collaborative teachers, with school leaders, and Apple's mentors is translating to practice because our new teachers express that they feel supported in their school as well as the district. As I shared with you before, our PD team is small and mighty, but through collaboration with our district departments as well as our schools, we're able to really provide opportunities for all and let them serve as the content experts, and we consult with them on the design and delivery of their PD. We have programs such as the New to Teaching Academy and Alt-Lee that have a demonstrated impact on teacher retention. We wish to grow those programs so that one day all career changers hired in the district have the opportunity to participate in those valuable offerings. Finally, our support staff really love the opportunity to learn and grow professionally last spring, so we continue to provide them with additional opportunities to do so. I can share the data and the plans with you, but for me, the real explanation comes through meeting the teachers and students that our work impacts each day. I would like to leave you with a picture of a why and the smiles that keep us coming back.
Anticipation. Stay where you are for right now. Or not. Maybe not. Get up and dance. Get up and dance.
It always works in practice. Or not.
It will be so anticlimactic if this doesn't. Everything's been leading up
Everybody's
to
here,
the
we could get up and
smiles.
dance.
It always works in practice.
That's a good sign.
I think we had this happen last week, right? We were trying to run something.
They always tell me turn off Wi-Fi and restart it.
Oh, my God.
I know it. It's not gonna work. Shoot.
You can narrate.
Yeah, I was gonna say, somebody could sing.
That would not be me.
It doesn't appear we're going to be able to get sound, but
right.
at least you can see the smiling faces.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, that was a lot of information. It was like information overload. But thank you all for such a great job that you are all doing. Really appreciate everybody.
Well, HR is very, very complicated, and there's a lot of parts and pieces to it, and I just felt like it was important for the board to understand the breadth and depth of the work that does go on every day to contribute to workforce success. But thank you.
for that. I guess, raise your hand if you have any questions. Ms. Vaughn, please.
Yes, how much time do I have several questions for several of areas. First of all, with the onboarding that takes place once the school year has started, in other words, after the preschool week, who's responsible for that? Is it the individual school, HR, or
That's a multi-part question, so let me kind of walk you through it. The first piece is the electronic onboarding, and that is done by the individual employee. That's like prior to hire, if you will. They cannot show up to the work site generally until they've completed the online orientation. If they are a teacher, then they have to come back within 30 to 45 days to do the in-person piece, which is a menu-driven professional development, which allows them to go to whatever topic interests them. We do make them go to certification and make them go to certain pieces, but then they can elect to do that. In addition to that, schools are given an onboarding checklist, and they are required to follow the items on the checklist. There are a couple different checklists. There's the checklist you get if the teacher starts the same day as all the other teachers. There's another checklist if you start after the other teachers start. There's more items on the checklist if you're at a Title I school. And then we survey the teachers to see if the schools are indeed doing what they're supposed to be doing. We're getting better at that. It's one of the challenges with decentralized hiring is that, you can set those expectations, monitor them, and then do some coaching and mentoring with those administrators that may not be following it the way that they should be.
Yeah, and I'm glad we're doing better with that, because I remember some issues several years ago. This is before I was on the school board and the CSI. So,
yep.
So yay, I'm glad we're doing better with that. On the customized credential plans, obviously we are really, really short on the ESE and ESOL all the time. And I know that typically teachers will, I want to do this, I want to do that. But do we give any kind of incentives or meeting with teachers? Somebody, let's say, who's teaching math, and we need some ESE support in math. Do we actually seek them out and say, hey, have you ever thought about, and offer incentives?
We have done that with the reading endorsement, not with ESE. And generally, and I just know this from being a former principal, that's what I would do at my work site, would be to go after those really talented teachers and beg and plead and, ask them if they would go get that and that additional endorsement. But at the district level, we sometimes through our Title II funds and other things, we're able to provide different incentives for things, but it's generally been in the core subject areas.
Yeah, it just seems like, we offer incentives for other things, and it's always, and I understand why, but it's always disturbing to me when I see, what we're doing in HR, out of the whole number of people that are out of their certification. So that might be something we might be able to consider,
Yep.
just to kind of help out with that. And it might give some teachers a little more job security as well on that. Okay, and I have two more things. One is on the experienced teachers, and when I look at the paths for advancing careers, I know that there are collaborative teachers, but let's put that aside for a little bit. It seems like that most of the career paths, at least for when I was teaching here and I was friends with a lot of younger teachers, not brand new, but younger teachers, and most all of them were going to grad school to get their master's in leadership. And I just think that's really a disservice that we don't offer better career paths for experienced teachers. Personally, and I guess it differs by school, I don't see that all principals will pull their really experienced teachers in to a leadership team that makes site-based decision. I think I've mentioned this before, and I remember Dr. Atkins said when he was at Paul Lawrence Dunbar that you had something like that, didn't you?
Yeah, both schools I worked at, Paul Lawrence Dunbar Middle School, and then originally we, where I got the idea from to take to Dunbar was from golf, where we did it there, golf middle.
And we, through our, as Will talked about with the collective bargaining agreements, we have really enhanced the language to make it not just a suggestion, but a requirement for the participatory decision-making to really strengthen that so that employees have more voice in the processes that go on at the particular schools. The other thing is, you know, Dr. Atkins, back when he was in my role, had the brainchild of the career ladder, and that is one of the ways, and as we continue to work on that, we're in discussions now about pieces we can add to our grandfathered teachers so that they too can participate in activities related to the career ladder. Now we do have, as Dr. Martin talked about with the teacher career bridge, we do have, and that's an area, it doesn't matter whether you're an annual or you know, grandfathered, you have the opportunity to participate in that and be eligible for those additional funds. Yes, some of those people are, to your point, like looking to get into administration, but there is a good salary enhancement there relative to that that's available to all teachers to participate in.
Yeah, and I just think that's so important as a school district that we show
Yep.
that we value our teachers, and because a teacher selects not to go into administration, I've known lots of teachers that choose, no, I'm not going to do that, okay, because I love teaching. And then the final question is for professional standards. Looking at the slide, investigations by employee race, I'd like to see a further breakdown of that data. For instance, you know, when you see something, okay, 65% were white that were investigated, out of what percent of our district employees are white?
Yeah, it runs pretty, I understand what you're saying. We break the data down by employee group, we break the data down because, and we certainly have that information that we could,
and that's,
yeah.
And Dr. Pruitt, that's
Because
exactly
the
what I had.
percentages by employee group are different as well in terms of the percentages, but the one thing I can tell you is, I mean, we'll provide you the data, is that the percentages are reflective of the percentage of the overall population, if that makes sense.
That was one thing, and I also had what you added, for instance, admin, tout people, spout people, and so I would like to see that particular, and also outcome, because this is just investigations. It's not whether there was a negative outcome on some of these, right? So I'd be
That's
curious.
formal investigations that were opened.
That were open,
whether there was a finding or not a finding, it's an...
Right, and that would be a significant piece of data, whether, for instance, Hispanic employees might have had a higher rate of negative findings versus,
Yeah.
so I'd be interested in all that, and I'm sorry I took so long.
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to say, if we can please stay to like Robert's rules, 10 minutes max, please.
I'm sorry, I wasn't timing. I'm done.
Ms. Gittens?
Okay, we can do a rapid fire. Some questions are yes, no.
And if we can't get them, we'll get them to you, because I definitely don't want to go over the allotted time without the board making the decision to do so. So I don't want to get in trouble because we went over 90 minutes.
Okay, the first question is about what's happening. This may take a little longer, you may have to get back to us, but I'm just interested in what is happening with VAM scores and how that is affecting, retention and hiring of teachers, looking at our current situation.
There were no VAM scores last year. We don't know yet about this year and what's going to happen. So the impact currently, there is none because there isn't any VAM right now.
Okay. Second of all, I had spoken with the superintendent last week and Lauren in our one-on-one about, the situation that happened last week and whether we are telling our new employees about the fact that we are a public entity. And
we are going to have more of a focus on it in the onboarding than we've had previously, yes.
So we are increasing that knowledge in the beginning?
Yes.
Okay. And then, I forget which slide it was, I think it was 23, but you were talking about the time, the 18 days for placing, for filling positions. And my question was, is this ever fast-tracked based on an extreme need at a school? We have some schools that we consistently see they're in need of employees and teachers and all of that. Do we try to fast-track that?
Yes.
Okay, and so what's the average like?
I'd have to go back and look at that to see. One of the challenges with being a school district is our time to fill, which is a standard HR metric. We can't capture that authentically right now because of how, for example, we may have a recruitment event in March, and so the job is advertised, but the person really doesn't fill the position until August, and so that's not a real reflection on the time to fill because it really may have filled within 2 days, but we don't know that looking through straight PeopleSoft. But we can look at that and see. But we do work with schools, especially in, very challenging, like if it's a self-contained ESE room and they have that great person, we may, handhold them and bring them through the process quicker. The biggest thing we like to make sure of, and we definitely don't override, is the background check and the fingerprinting and all of that. Like, we will not let them go any faster. So sometimes it's also not a true reflection of time to hire because the employee, we give them the fingerprinting and they may not go for a week, right? And then they want, oh, how come the employees, well, they haven't gone to get their fingerprints, and I'm not going to let anybody on property without going through the background check.
So when we say fast track, you're basically saying like putting them on the top of the pile instead of the bottom of the pile, but everything else is...
It's like I get on the phone or somebody does and said, you have to go right now, get in your car, drive down to here, go get your, it's that.
Yeah, okay. Slide 64 was talking about policy and all that, and my question was about drug testing. Are the bus drivers the only ones that are drug tested?
No, it's anyone who has a safety sensitive that involves heavy equipment. Mr. Brown probably knows the specifics, but it's statutorily determined who we have to drug test.
And what just generically, are there a large percentage of positions that you feel that have to have the drug testing?
In addition to the drivers, I'm not sure how many.
And does that, while he's coming up, and does that slow down that time to fill process for?
No, because, no, I don't.
Because they have to get fingerprints and drug testing and whatever.
I wouldn't think so, but. Okay.
Push it anyway.
Oh, go ahead.
Andy.
Live dangerously.
Yeah.
So we are obligated by law to drug test anyone whose job requirement requires a commercial driver's license, bus drivers. There are some other positions in the district that fit that category as well. We take it a step further and include in the eligible pool for random screening those employees that are in what we call safety-sensitive position. Dr. Pruitt described it accurately. It's anything where there would be operating equipment, driving certain vehicles with the district that don't require a CDL. And so we go a little bit above and beyond that. There are thresholds set by the DOT that require us to test at a level, and it's included in one of the slides. We're required to test 50% of our eligible DOT drivers quarterly. We do that. We're only obligated to test 10% of our eligible drivers relative to alcohol testing, but we do that at a rate of 25% just to be extra safe.
Okay, thank you. On slide 81, it's talking about recruitment impact. And at the bottom, it's talking about guest teachers, that 295 potential guest teachers receive steps to continue the process.
That was in our most recent recruitment effort.
So in other words, to me, that says 295 were put in the process of doing it. How many of those were hired?
It's still in process, so I don't have the final number, but I know right off the bat it was, I think, close to 100, and then they're continuing to follow up.
Is it considered a career path, so to speak, if someone wants to get into the system to start out as a guest teacher and kind of work their way that way?
Well, honestly, right now, Ms. Gittens, if they're eligible, we're teaching, we're having them be a teacher.
No, I know, but then, I spoke with someone last week and they were thinking, well, to get in.
Yeah, absolutely. But if they have a bachelor's degree, I say, have them get a hold of recruitment, and
just
if they're eligible,
right
we're gonna, and I'm telling you that New to Teaching Academy has been so helpful and beneficial. We're really, really proud of the work that we've done there. So, and that's, we can provide, we do sometimes, we hire them, and then it's not until the next time we offer the course, then they can still go through it, even if they've been teaching for a couple months. If they're eligible, we'll put them through it.
So, and I'm going really quickly, I'm almost done. For guest teachers, do we encourage them by showing them, here is a process, yes, you're a guest teacher, and here's a process that we can get you in?
Yeah, it's one of their biggest
testing.
It's one of their biggest recruitment tools is the guest teachers and going after the guest teachers.
And when they're first hired, you tell them that as well at first? Okay. All right, last one. On slide 89, it's talking about career bridges, and my question is, how are we recruiting? I know you go to, the historical black colleges and all of that, but our percentage of Hispanics is higher than blacks in our district. How are we recruiting Hispanics for the AP and the principal pool positions, and how are we going after them to kind of step that up, as it's a dire need?
Yeah, I would be happy to address that. Actually, it's funny, I'm having these meetings right now with each of the principal groups. I have to rely on them as well, right? So when we hire them into the district, we talk about what are some opportunities you will have if you come. And to Ms. Vaughn's point, right, we try to encourage them. We want them to continue to be teachers, but if they're interested in being a leader, being an administrator in a building, so we give them options about what is available to you if you come. What would your career look like? Because the people that are on the recruitment teams have a variety of experiences, if you will. And so I have to rely on principals and assistant principals to help me identify those candidates who have the qualities that they believe would make a great leader. And then we work with the local university, Florida Gulf Coast University. We try to get them to come and do orientations. We try to invite people to come and to be interested. But it's an opportunity for sure, but I have to rely on the principals because it's really just me.
And I do know that at one point we were, I won't say recruiting in foreign countries, but in contact with some of the higher learning schools and all of that
Yes.
in certain, Spanish-speaking countries.
Yes.
And then I've heard from people, though, that when they do come and they say, I have a degree, and then it's kind of lessened, you do, but you don't have this, this, and this. So that's kind of a holdback.
We actually, today, I think we're doing our Puerto Rico event today. Yes, we're doing our virtual Puerto Rico event today. So we're sitting in here and we have people back in the office that we're having a virtual event with Puerto Rico today. So
Okay.
you are right, trying to do the transcripts, but as it relates to teachers, because we're working with them and we're looking at their credentials ahead of time, because of course I don't want somebody to move here who cannot teach, that would be cruel. So we do have that in place as it relates to teachers.
Okay, all right.
Okay, thank you. No, I'm timing you here. No, I'm just kidding. Mayor, did anybody else have any questions or comments? Ms. Patrica?
Get two things super quickly. Ms. Vaughn, you talked about incentives for ESE and ELL. I wonder whether incentives for ESE is a good idea, because it's my understanding that teaching is a calling, and teaching ESE students is an additional calling on top of that. So do you want to incentivize me, Chris Patrica, to be an ESE teacher?
No.
Incentivize me?
No. That's why I'm saying we rely on the principals because they know their folks and they know who has the capacity and the heart for that work, to your point.
Right, I just want you to think about
And
that.
no.
Move forward with something like that.
My thought was
Ms. Vaughn?
exactly what Dr. Pruitt
Yes.
said. It would be based on the knowledge of the principal.
And then my
Thanks, thank
second
you.
is a comment. I don't want an answer today. A teacher approached me and was trying to use the EAP for counseling and was unable to do so online. Had to file a face-to-face counseling session, and that just seems counterintuitive given the times we're in. So I mention it only because you're in front of me right now.
Sure,
It has nothing to do
absolutely.
with the presentation, but
Yep,
no answer today. Just if you could
got it.
follow up on
Thank
that.
you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else?
Oh, and also, awesome job.
Thank you.
I feel like HR is, everybody in HR is part of that sort of unseen army of people that have made this work. I do get concerned about you and future recruitment, given the sort of the national conversation surrounding teachers. And, we have a lot of jurisdictions across the country that are not open, and their teachers are being blamed for that. I hope that people can distinguish between those parts of the country and here, but I do see that as being a challenge for you moving forward.
Yeah,
It's
I agree.
the reality.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Fisher, before I ask you, I just want to let everyone know that we are just running over a little bit late, so thank you for your patience.
And I'll be really brief. So this was an awesome overview, and I really took particular note about one thing. I've been kind of involved with my work on the strategic plan with the health and wellness, and I just wanted to give a shout out. Our wellness people have been attending a lot of the Lee Health meetings, and that data is awesome. And I really think that the return on the investment and the strides that have been made are really noteworthy, and I just wanted to give a shout out about that. And I wanted to say thank you. This was detailed, it was comprehensive. I don't think you left any stone unturned, and I really don't have any questions. I would like to see probably a little bit more higher numbers with our Grow Your Own, because I think we are growing our own quite a bit. And the other thing I wanted to mention was, Ms. Harrell, I love your mask. So thank you all.
Yeah, and the low numbers are based on the funding that's available, just so you know that. So if you guys can get us more money, we'll give more scholarships.
We keep asking.
Ms. Giovanelli? Thank you, Ms. Fisher.
It was really comprehensive, and there's a lot of information. And my list kind of got long, but I'm going to shorten it up. The survey initially said only 399 people responded. Now, who all?
Responded to that particular question.
But how many people went? I mean, how?
Well, we have 6,000 teachers, and we had a 78 response rate. Where's my math people? How much?
It was approximately 4,700 teachers.
4,700 teachers responded to this year's climate survey.
Okay. And then the other question I had regarding the unemployment, I was trying to look at the dates of how that was paid out. Like, when did that actually happen?
So what happens is, would they bill us quarterly, okay? And so what you see there is I think it's quarters 2 and 3, if I'm not mistaken.
Just June 30th.
Yeah, and so when we received the first bill that was so extremely large, that's when we learned that the state decided they were going to pay out anybody that filled it out, and that they weren't going to give us. Normally what happens is we're notified that somebody's filed for unemployment, and then we can dispute that, but we weren't given the opportunity, because when the state unemployment system crashed, their response to that was, we're just going to give everybody money that asks. And they've told us that we have to pay 50% of the bill, and that if they are able to get the money back from the places that they weren't supposed to give it out, then we'll get reimbursed. But if they can't get the money back, we're kind of stuck.
But, okay, but it looks like it continued in July.
Yep.
September.
Yep.
So they just kept
doing it, not giving us the opportunity to address it. They just kept paying and kept paying and kept paying.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's, regarding onboarding and employee info. So we just recently had a public records issue regarding information that's important. And I know that HR is working on a policy and procedures change on that. Can you just kind of add to that so the public can see?
Sure. What we have done is we have revamped the form. One thing we found is that there were a lot of, the current form was online, was available, but somehow people got old forms, and I don't know what happened. So we have updated the form. We have made it an electronic fillable PDF form that's available online. And we're in the process of navigating through and following up with the people who have requested an exemption since this all happened. It's over 100 right now. Part of the challenge is we need to make sure that employees are very clear on who's entitled to an exemption, because we don't want someone to say they're entitled to it and that get challenged by an outside entity. So we're going to be very thoughtful as we go through that and as we communicate with those folks. And then once we've done that, then we will update, as the communication has explained, we will update with the new list.
And I just think it's important just to remind our employees that we're a public service, in that we, everything's public record.
Yes.
So they just need to be I think they just need to be reminded of that, because
I would agree, which is why hopefully in the onboarding that will, because again, it really isn't that many people, I think, when all is said and done, that are going to qualify for an exemption. But I do think it is important for that one, or that, whoever, that we have that available and, are able to meet that need.
Yeah, and just a reminder, periodically throughout the year, because status changes for people, for households,
Correct.
New jobs and this and that. So the opportunity, then they might not think about it at the time.
Right.
Unless we kind of keep reminding them that we're public records or any, so.
Yeah, and the other thing is, people are required to have some type of personal address on file. So, because people are asking, well, can't I just make the district office my address, or my school there? No, you have to provide your employer with, it can be a P.O. box if you want to do that, but you can't use your school or this building's address.
Right. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Morgan?
I'll reserve for later.
Okay. Thank you. And I'll have some questions, but I'll just send it to you.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Really appreciate you all being here.
Thank you all very much.
And you see, now you don't have to do double duty.
I know. He's back.
He is back. So Dr. Atkins is back with us.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Next on the agenda, and I'm going to give them a few minutes to leave. We have the budget update.
Good job, team. No, I'm going to go right in.
With, I guess, Ms. Lecter's doing it and doing it.
Good job.
Do y'all want to take a few minutes break in between, or are you good for right now? Okay, thank you.
So I have a hard stop at 4.
Everybody does. Well, quite a few do, yeah.
What time is your hard stop?
She has a hard stop at 4.
It's, it's going to be tough.
Which one, what was it?
It's a go. Yeah, it's going to be tough. Probably, they're hard once they go. They go quick and they go hard. And so we did everything we could, and it's just, yeah.
Whenever you're ready.
I have two subjects.
I don't think you're on.
Sorry about that. Good afternoon, everyone. I have two things to talk about. I'm going to try and make it as brief as possible. We just wanted to catch you up on where we are with projections and what we're looking at. So every year we have to do our FTE projections with the state, which is the full-time equivalency. This is the student count, not the staff count. There are two types of FTE that we talk about. We talk about an unweighted FTE, which is basically a student count of instructional hours. And then you have your weighted FTE, which takes the instructional hours of the students and adds in the weights, whether they're an ESOL student, an ESE student, if they're taking a career class or something like that. So that weights it, it gives it a heavier weight. And so when we go to the state, we have to do projections from one year to the next. This year, the state didn't open the file up until really late. Of course, with COVID, nobody really knows what's going on, so it was a tough year for them and for us. When they looked at the projections, Lee County's projections are down, as is most counties in the state. This year we had projected, and the state had projected, that we would have 96,061 students. We're actually, based on our Survey 2 and our Survey 3 that we just finished within the last couple of weeks, it looks like we're going to be around 93,600 students, so we're down about 2,500 students or 2,400 students total this year. So that, of course, has an impact on next year's projections, and so the state really looked at this year's projections for the counties, and normally they would look at a 3-year trend and see what was happening, and it appears as if they just did a 1-year trend of what happened this year when they came up with the projections. So what they do is they give you some models to choose from, and then they have a recommended model. They recommended Model 9 for us, which was the highest one they had given for Lee County, which was 95,000 students for next year. So 95,115 to be exact, which is about a 1,500 student increase from where we are right now. So since I had no additional information to argue that point, because we are down, I couldn't argue it, so we accepted their projection of 1,500. However, within that projection, they had some things that we did disagree with, and that we did go back and have some discussions with them, and they agreed with us. The two areas that we had talked to them about was ESOL and our ESE level 254. So let's talk about ESOL first. So even with our numbers going down, our ESOL population has grown. Our ESOL population this year has grown about 6%, which, when your numbers are going down and that population is growing, that's a big growth for us. They had come in, so that was about 273 students. They came in with a growth for next year of like 200 students. So I went back and I showed them the growth over the years, and they've given us a total of 478 next year for our growth for ESOL. So we bumped that up. Our ESE and our ESE 254, so some of you, I'm sure, are very aware of the way that ESOL or ESE works. If you get basic services, speech services, or very basic services, you just need some help, you're categorized in like a 111, 112, 113. You're basically given basic funding with some ESE guarantee. Our students that have a little bit more needs are categorized in a higher level, which is a 254 and a 255. Those students require more one-on-one. They're usually in a self-contained type classroom setting, not in with the general population, or they go into the normal classroom throughout the day, but they have their own setting as well. Those students do require more because the class sizes are smaller, and the Department of Education knows that. One of the things that we've had noticed over the years was that while I'm getting a lot of requests for ESE needs, my ESE numbers were declining instead of increasing. So I asked Teresa Bowen in ESE to take a look at that, and what we found is that some of our students were being miscoded. So they were being coded to the lower levels when they really should have been in 254s. So she has really been looking at that and making changes, and so I went over with DOE. So already this year, we had 101 student growth in our 254 over last year's because of the changes that she made. And as we were going through there, and I had talked to her, we had talked about other models and had looked at everything, we went ahead and DOE, by the way, had dropped us 58 students for next year, so they were dropping us lower as we were growing. And so we went back with them, and they've agreed to adjust us, and so we went up 170 students in that area. So all we did, though, is switch them from our basics into the ESE. So we just, the numbers stayed the same, it's just switching it. They are a higher weight factor, so this will increase our weighted FTE beyond the original projections the state had given us. So really, that's about all I have on the FTE projections, unless you all have questions.
Do you have any questions? Ms. Gittens?
I do have one quick one. I know that we do our count and those, the 2 counts per year. But with the projection, if we are too far off, I hope I'm saying this right, from what we project, is there any type of penalty or?
So during a normal year, this is far from a normal year. During a normal year, what you do is you turn in your projection, and then during the survey periods, they kind of line up your funding with your surveys. There are actually 5 survey periods, 4 of which the student counts are done. The first and fourth, really only DJJ students count during those. The rest of the time we count students, but we're not funded based on that. That's the summer ones. But normally what happens is they do survey 2, which is in October, and then they come back to us, and based on survey 2, we can do some tweaks to what we think survey 3 will look like based on survey 2. So we make some minor adjustments, and then they send out a new funding on what they call calculation 3. That's when we get our Florida Education Finance Program calculation. And then after the February survey, that's usually done again. They take the actual October, the actual February, and then they adjust your funding based on that. This year, because of COVID and everything that's going on, the executive order basically came out in the beginning of COVID that said that they would pay us on our projections. And so as of right now, we're still being paid on our projection of 96,000 students. Now that executive order ended, I think, in December. And so we're still waiting, and I think Mrs. Jordan shared with me that you all had some conversations and that they were not going to be giving out a calculation 3 this year. They were going to hold off until Calc 4 before they made any adjustments to districts. So we're just waiting to see. We normally would have received our Calc 3 by now. It has not come in, so I have to assume that that's exactly what they're doing, is waiting till after this February survey to see what really is going on in districts.
Is there ever a time that, they give us funding based on all these different calculations and we come in under that, and do we have to pay them back? Or?
It isn't that we have to pay them back. They adjust, and so when we receive the calculation, because they don't pay us in advance, they pay us as we go.
Okay.
So they'll just make that adjustment, and the next payment will be less.
Oh, right, because that did happen once.
Yes.
I do recall.
Yes,
Okay.
and then normally if if there's a lot of growth in the state and it's over the state's projection, then we'll get prorated. But this year the growth is underneath, so I'm interested to see if there's a proration up instead of down.
That would be nice. Thank you.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so, but that would be good. That'd be really cool if they did that for us.
Did anyone else have any questions? Gordon?
Okay. So then I'll go on to the governor's budget. So the governor, of course, always puts a budget out prior to the legislative session. I will say that the governor's budget is usually the high mark. So usually whenever the governor's budget comes out, we don't get anywhere near what the governor is recommending. So it usually is the high mark. The governor's budget does use the 95,114 projection of unweighted FTE. However, for Lee County's weighted FTE, that was the state's original numbers before we had time to go back and work with them. So our weighted FTE will be up. Looking at the governor's budget, and you all got it ahead of time, so I'm not going to go through each line item with you. It does have an increase in he is recommending an increase in the base student allocation of $132. The Department of Education did not put an increase like that in their recommended budget, so it'll be interesting to see where we fall. There was one thing that was added new into the budget. If you remember this past year, some of the adjustments that were made coming into FY21 was that the school recognition and the lottery dollars, the state did not provide them to districts. They're not proposing, based on the governor's budget, not proposing to provide those to districts either, so there'll be no lottery dollars or school recognition dollars to come in. However, they did add this thing called Title I School Recognition Program. I have no background as to what that's about, but I have to assume it would come with very stringent strings attached, and it would be for probably our Title I schools based on the title. That's how I assumed it would come in. But there was no backup to show what that really was. So as I get more information, I'll make sure that you all receive that as well. But looking at the total budget for from the governor's proposing about a $12.9 million increase for Lee County, and why that number sounds really good and high. You know, when somebody hears 12.9, that sounds good. However, for Lee County, as we met with our TALC and SPALC, and you all know that we have agreed that we would contribute more to our health insurance program next year. That's going to cost us about $7.8 million. So we already know going in that we have an increase in the budget of $7.8 million for our health insurance contribution. We also know, and I'm sure you all have been told watching the legislation, that they're still planning on increasing districts' contribution for the Florida retirement system again. I have to assume it's going to be at the same level as it is this year, because they're really pushing to make sure that the Florida retirement system is covered. And so I have to assume it's going to be at the same level, which is another $7.2 million. So as you can tell, based on the 7.8 and the 7.2, we've exceeded, remember, the high mark of the governor's budget of 12.9. So we are going into the year with about a $2 million deficit, knowing what we're already probably going to have coming at us based on the high mark of what the governor had. So that's not good news, and I apologize that I couldn't have good news for you, but I just wanted to make sure you all knew where we were. And do you have any questions on the governor's budget that I might be able to answer?
Ms. Patrica?
I have a question. I never get my hopes up for the budget anymore, but I will say that it's a little mean of you to show us this budget instead of the House budget, because you know that this is not going to be real. So it's a little mean, because I get my hopes up a little bit, like, oh, we're not going to lose too much. We're behind a couple million after you take into consideration insurance and FRS contributions, but the reality is we're going to be down a lot when the House comes out with their budget, right?
We more than likely will. In my 30-something years in budget, we have had 1 year where the House, the legislators actually came in higher than the governor's budget. So I don't think that's going to be this year. So I apologize that I know you are.
You get the point.
I don't think that we're going to see this one being the budget that comes through.
Are there any other questions? I will say, too, and I know I had mentioned this to Kelly after I came back from that finance, because a lot of it was pertaining to the COVID and the money that we're not receiving, and how that we have to look forward to them rolling things together, like transportation and some other categories. So that way you really can't see the breakdown. So it's going to be fun. And they actually said, come back and give them all a hug because they're really important to us. So we need to make sure that we do that, whether it's virtually or not, we need to give them all a hug.
Yeah, and what's interesting is while they're going to not provide, or appears that they were not going to provide the allocations in those set categories, the strings that go with those are still there.
Right.
So that's one thing we have to remember, is it may not be marked that way, but we still must comply with the rules that go along with that. So that's kind of disheartening when they do that, because it appears as if we have more than we really have.
Correct. Thank you. No one else? No, thank you so much.
Thank
Really
you all.
appreciate it. Okay, so moving right along, if everybody's okay and they don't need a break, we will move on to the agenda review and with Dr. Atkins.
All right, good afternoon, board members. So we'll go ahead and get started with the first item. First item is the consent agenda, academic services, approval of the academic affiliation agreement, Lee Memorial Health System. The question is contract signed before board informed. Ms. Davis.
Good afternoon. I believe the question was from Ms. Gittens.
Correct.
I just needed some clarification based on the document that's available in board docs. It has just the board attorney's signature.
Okay, I'm sorry, I was distracted. That question had to do with a couple of different contracts and I did speak to Attorney Bruno and someone else about it, that my question was that when it appears on the board agenda and it's already signed by the other party, if we're a partnership, for example, with FGCU, that there are several that have gone through the process and they're already signed. And Attorney Bruno, would you mind sharing what you explained to me on that situation?
No. Yes.
The contracts are signed by me prior to being put on the agenda.
Correct.
With regards to the form and legal sufficiency. If there is another attorney, for example, at Florida Gulf Coast University, they have their assistant general counsel also sign as to legal sufficiency and to form. Then it is brought to the board so the board can review it, discuss it, vote on it, and then at that point the superintendent and the chair will sign the contract.
Okay. And my question was basically whether or not everyone else had seen it and approved it on the other side before we did. That was my question.
No, ma'am. The academic affiliation agreement with Lee Health has not been approved by anyone other than Attorney Bruno. And if the board so moves to approve it this evening, then it will go back to Lee Health for final signature, and then it will be activated for our students.
Okay.
I will add, Ms. Gittens, that when they are doing contract negotiations, the other party does have the obligation to review the contract, make sure they approve of the terms as well, so that when it does come back to them, I'm anticipating that they're just going to sign off because these terms have been approved and negotiated by both parties.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next item is approval of the agreement and articulated acceleration plan for college level instruction for high school students with Kaiser University 2020-2021. Question is this a renewal or new? And I know Lori's prepared to answer that.
Good afternoon. Yes, this is a renewal of a current agreement.
Okay, and I had mentioned this before and I got pushback from my colleagues about it, but I just think it would be real simple to have a line that just says renewal, yes or no. When I brought it up before, others said, well, if you read through that, you can tell that it is, but why not just make it simple? Because other stakeholders in the public do look at our agendas as well, and it would be very simple just to have a line that says renewal, yes or no, period. Thank you.
Okay, I will move on to the next one, and I apologize. I think Ms. Rita's going to answer this one. Approval of the Memorandum of Understanding of Infrastructure Cost Agreement with Local Workforce Development. Board question is, get good execution of contract, only board attorney for legal approval, then board consent.
And basically, it's not a question now. I had asked the question, and then I spoke with Attorney Bruno about it, and I'm just saying that one was a good one as far as I was concerned, because it was easy. So, yay. It was easy to understand that this and this and this, and so it was a kudo, not a question.
And that goes to Brian Granstra.
Good job.
Can I ask before we move on then, can you, whoever has questions on here, if there are any that you have already received your answer, would you please let Dr. Atkins know so that way we can move forward on some of these? Dr. Atkins? Oh, yes.
But if one board member has received the answer, maybe other board members might like to know the answer too. So I don't really understand your reasoning.
Okay, well, because they just said that, and then Ms. Gittens had said that it really wasn't a question, so I just want to make sure that we're getting the answers that we're needed. So if you want to hear all of them, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be beneficial for all. I don't think that one board member should know something over another. Even if we're not questioning it, that doesn't mean it doesn't help us in the long run on the understanding. You understand what I'm saying?
Yep, sounds good. Dr. Atkins?
Okay, next question is approval of the Memorandum of Understanding with Florida Gulf Coast University Board of Trustees.
And this is similar to the other one, with whether or not it was discussed before the board, so you can move on.
Okay. All right, next one is, there are two different board member questions.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, before he moves on, I just want to point one thing out just so the board knows, because G4, I believe it's G4, is actually a good example where the board attorney for the school board has signed off, and also the attorney for Florida Gulf Coast University has signed off. However, the board members, the chair of each institution, has not signed off because they're just waiting for the votes.
On both sides?
Correct, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, next item, we have two board member questions, so I'll read both of them. This has to do with H1, approval to remove items from the official property record. First question is, just out of curiosity, do we sell the Beyond Repair bus for scraps? And second question, parts scrap for bus, question mark. Mr. Lloyd.
This one's easy. The answer to both questions is yes. So we do auction our buses when they're beyond repair, but before doing so, we cannibalize them. That's what we call it. And basically, our mechanics, if they need a strobe light and we have one working, we'll take them down. We take seats. We take anything we can use before we then tow them to auction.
Thank you. Ms. Vaughn?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, since I asked that question as well as you, I don't know that there was any, I think there was a 0 on, on the list that we were given. Like, there's no value.
Value for the buses?
I believe so. I have to go back to that line. Did that strike you as well?
No, there's a cost. The net book value was 0.
It's different than the value.
Yes, the difference between the two is the first cost is will show the original acquisition cost.
Yes, correct.
And then
it was
the
0.
value will be the value of the item on our books, which means if it says 0, then that thing has been fully depreciated.
Correct.
Each thing, according to financial accounting standards, each piece of equipment has a specific useful life in which you depreciate that item over. So if there's a 0, that means it's been fully depreciated. That doesn't mean that it has 0 value on the street. It just has 0 value in our books.
Okay, and I misunderstood that.
Yeah.
And that leads me to ask, out of curiosity, where we would find out what we're getting for this myriad of items that are obsolete or beyond repair, because I know at one time, our technology that was out of date, we were selling it, and are we still doing that? We were selling it and making money that went to fund some things for teachers.
That's right.
So where do we find that aspect?
Mr. Davis was selling it.
Oh, I didn't know, yeah, Dwayne may want to respond, but I was going to say, we have, reporting that comes in that shows how much in total, we're receiving over a particular period of time. And we do, book that in our books under a specific revenue code as well. We don't report on it specifically, but we certainly could give some information. And Mr. Alton, I don't know if there's anything additional you want to add to that?
I was just going to confirm that, yes, we do still sell the old equipment, and we can provide a report. It's going to be, I think, different than transportation, because I think we use different avenues to auction off the equipment, but we can put that together if you like.
Okay, yeah, because I'll admit, I misunderstood. When I saw 0, I thought, okay, and I understand what you're saying. It's no longer of value to us as a school district, which doesn't mean we just drop it off a cliff or something, that we do get money back from, at least some kind of money for some of these things.
Yeah, we typically get anywhere between $800 and $1,400 for the scrap metal
And so
from the auction.
what fund would that normally go into?
That actually goes back to the general fund.
Well, it typically would go back to whatever whatever funding source purchased the goods in the first place. So in the case of buses, because we buy those out of capital, those funds would typically go back into capital. If it was something else we were selling that originally got purchased out of gen fund, typically it would go back there, unless we have some other type of arrangement like we do with our technology equipment, that goes back into the general fund.
I have a related question while Dr. Desamores is at the, yep. Question was, again, same report, we have a $2,229 sousaphone. The question is, how does that become obsolete?
So that sousaphone was purchased in 2007. So it's 14 years old. So it was shown on the report the original acquisition value of the 2,229, but then the fully depreciated value of 0, because it's been fully depreciated. It's 14 years old. It's just not working the way that it was when it was first purchased, and so it was one of those items that the school had determined to write off, to dispose of, as they get additional replacement equipment into the ranks.
Okay, and I'm not an expert. That was my question on musical instruments, but some musical instruments that are expensive, like a sousaphone, and I was looking up prices, and they start much lower and go way up higher. Wouldn't it be more cost effective to recondition them as the years go by? I mean,
Yes, they can, and we do. That we do recondition instruments over a great period of time. I'm not the instrument expert, but I know there comes, some point in time where, the reconditioning just isn't going to do it anymore in terms of the sound of the instrument. This particular one is 14 years old, so I'm sure depending on the instrument, it's going to last, a certain period of time. But those instruments across the board do get reconditioned, and we have our fine arts area that helps with kind of the rotation across different schools and making sure that that gets done across schools.
And things like this would be sold at auction as well?
Yes.
Okay.
I just had a question that sometimes comes up with board members, because I'm not sure if this is exactly what you were getting at, Ms. Vaughn, but question is, sometimes we have things on the list that say beyond repair, and then we have other things that are obsolete. And I know we, up in our office, sometimes have difficulty distinguishing between the two. And so, and like I said, we sometimes get questions, so maybe you could help us with that one.
Yeah, sure. I mean, many times, I mean, honestly, they could be very much the same with, the two definitions. But typically for something, if we say it's going to be beyond economical repair, then that means that that location has gone to some service agent of whatever the thing is. They've gone, to get a quote on how much it would be to prepare that particular item. And then, some expert for the item has determined, it's going to cost more to repair this particular item than it would to just go ahead and purchase a new one, or it really isn't worth the investment in that particular item. It's really what we call beyond economical repair. Obsolete could be more of, they don't even make parts for this thing anymore, so you couldn't repair it if you wanted to, or something along those particular lines because of the age of the item.
Yeah, and actually, to finish out what I was thinking about when I asked that, actually what Dr. Atkins said, I'm like, it's not like it's even a harpsichord wouldn't be obsolete, but you know where I'm going with that. It just seemed a weird word, and now that I know better on the zeros that appear, it won't be so depressing to see the thousands and thousands of dollars that when you see these lists and misunderstand, you think, oh my God, this is just all that money down the drain.
Well, correct, but that is, keep in mind, as we said, the original acquisition cost of those items. What is not necessarily listed on there that maybe we could kind of think about whether we want to do something a little bit different is, what was the original acquisition date of the particular item? Because many of these things have been around for years, 20 plus.
Well, and it's the same, there was like a desk and a hutch and all those things, and I was thinking, teachers are scroungers, and it doesn't matter how bad the desk looks, they may like to have that desk, so it's like, where do these things go? So,
yes, well, we actually do.
I'm done with my...
Ms. Bond, can we?
Okay, and I was just going to say, with some of our surplus furniture as well, we do offer that out to different schools. Sometimes we'll warehouse it for a period of time. Even after it's written off, we'll keep it, and, people can come take a look at it, and sometimes take it, we'll put it back into rotation, or we'll offer it out before the write-off. But we do make it as part of the process to do that as well.
Got it, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Atkins?
I think that goes ahead and takes us to item I, Human Resources, approval of the personnel recommendations. First question, is there a replacement for Bigger? And how many administrators do they have? Data, number, face-to-face, achievement levels?
So currently, they have a principal and 3 assistant principals. Mr. Bigger's position has been advertised. They have it down to their 2 final candidates, so I anticipate we'll be coming to you in March with that candidate's name. Relative to the face-to-face and achievement levels, that's a fluid number, so we can get you the most up-to-date number and put that in the board update. In terms of achievement levels, we just weren't clear because we don't have any data from last year, so you want the data from 2 years ago? Is that what you're asking?
No, that's fine. And we can talk about that offline.
Okay.
I'm wondering with Mr. Bigger's position, if that is going to give an opportunity for one of those 100 and some people in the AP pool to move.
Yes, the 2 finalists are 2 candidates in the AP pool.
That are not particularly at that school right now?
I don't know.
And you don't have to answer that. I just wanted to get it out there that is kind of, I won't say depressing, but it's a downer for some people in the pool that they never move. They just keep treading water in the pool because everything comes
And a couple things to that, because since we've engaged in some of these conversations, I think you heard Ms. Harrell say in terms of the very specific and one-to-one coaching and stuff that she is doing with candidates in that pool. She's also doing the same thing with the principals. She literally will call them and say, you need to interview this person, you need to interview that person, and really has had some positive results of that. It's like, people have a tendency, they want to go hire somebody that they know, right? That known quantity, but because of the work that Lynn has been doing, it's really expanded who they're interviewing and the candidates that are actually being selected for some of the positions. And that electronic follow-up and the continuing professional development, I think, will also help with that.
And I appreciate that because it's kind of historically, that's what people think.
Right, and honestly, because of the ongoing conversations over the last couple of years, that's why we've continued. That's also why the finalists have to come down here and they have to have an conversation interview with Dr. Spiro and myself and Ms. Harrell and then an executive director from that particular level so that we can try to broaden it so it's not.
And help them to make that broader decision.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that it's out there so people know that they won't just necessarily sit in the pool forever.
Sure.
Thank you.
And then, go ahead.
That takes us to I2, approval of the employment contract with staff attorney James Holloway.
Right.
Question is, reports to chief staff attorney, have we finalized that title or will that be done in the upcoming workshop?
No, that job description title change was made at the board approved that on January 12th of this year. So we're currently utilizing the term chief staff attorney and then staff attorney for, in Mr. Holloway's case, is business services and labor, in quotes. And there is, I believe, Dr. Atkins, somewhere we're on the list at some point of topics to do that overall legal review and have that conversation that you guys had requested.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Next question, again on this contract, per their contracts, do the staff attorneys have a deadline to obtain their Florida Bar Education Law Certificate? What is Mr. Holloway's status on that part of his contract?
So he's met the first criteria, which is the practice of law for at least 5 years, and he has attended each of the Florida School Board Attorney Association CLE conferences since his hiring, and so he is on track and doing what he needs to do relative to that.
Any other questions?
Any other questions on that?
Yeah, what about the first part of that?
Which was what?
Staff
Per
attorneys
their
have a deadline.
contracts, do the staff attorneys?
A deadline to complete.
Is there a set date? Is it what,
That's, and it was kind
a
of,
year, 2 years?
I think we have for our board attorney a deadline. I mean, I know they're all different contracts, so.
So the language of his contract, I just looked at it, says that they should be permitted to attend conferences to obtain the necessary CLEs to sit for the exam. And so in his case, he's attended 2 CLEs. Now, the CLEs for board certification in education law are only provided by FSBAA. There's a few exceptions like LRP that also do things that qualify for education certification for CLEs. Again, I have them attending all of the possible conferences that are available. Most of them all of them have been remote, so we've been able to do those. There was one this past Friday, but there's no specific deadline in there because those conferences come and go. And again, to sit for the exam, you need to obtain 50 hours of education specifically in the area of education law.
Okay.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Giovanelli has a question.
So,
I'm coming to that one next.
no, this is different.
Okay.
This is still on this topic. So I think the question is, in his contract, is it a required to have the certification, and is there a deadline in his contract that requires him to have that done by a certain time? I think that was the...
Said no.
The answer is no. There's no specific deadline. It is a requirement that he work towards obtaining that, and which is what he's doing.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, one clarification. Thank you.
Okay, next question. And this question is, what are the numbers that leave virtual school, elementary, middle, high? What are the numbers of students and number of teachers since you moved from most students and teachers back to face-to-face learning?
You can get that information to me later, it doesn't matter.
It's real quick, I have it. So our total number of students that leave virtual right now is 2,465. Breakdown is 839 high school, 594 middle, and 1,032 elementary. We currently have 114 instructional staff at Lee Virtual School. 27 of them are the original LVS staff. And I just want to make the point of saying that I do anticipate we will be making more staffing changes before the year is out, because remember, parents can move at any time. So that number, it's fluid, it changes, but that's currently where we're at. Is that what you needed, Ms. Giovanelli? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next question, consent item, information systems, approval to award the ITN, wide area network, and internet services. The question is, why are these costs not included in the construction of the new school's cost? Why is it separated out? Mr. Alton.
Okay. The costs that are related to the construction of the school, including any of the infrastructure costs for the equipment that goes inside the school, are already included in the construction costs. These RFPs that you see here, the first one that is for infrastructure equipment, this is a purchasing vehicle for us to make those purchases. It's not a budget. So essentially, we're going to be using those construction funds to purchase off this purchase vehicle to provide that equipment. And you'll notice that these each have a reference to E-rate. And that is because we receive funding from the federal government for a portion of these purchases, and of course we have to bring those on this cycle, which is why you're seeing all of them tonight. Now, you also, I believe, the same question was asked of the internet services, wide area network services one, and that is basically like paying your Comcast bill. That's where we're paying for our internet services, so that can't be included in a construction cost because that's an ongoing operational expense.
So I think that took care of J2 and J3.
Yep.
All right, so the next one is, question is, how will this affect our students and families that struggle with connectivity during COVID-19?
Well, these particular agreements will not directly impact them because we have other programs in place for them. This is really on the school side. This is where the connectivity comes into the school itself. We do, however, have programs for our students that don't have access at home, and we can provide mobile hotspots for them. We have those in stock and ready to go to assist those that need it during the COVID crisis.
How are the hotspots working? I mean, are they able to have consistent connectivity for those that are still doing home connected settings?
Well, it's going to vary, but generally, yes, they're reliable. Now, it's going to vary based upon where you are because, again, we're talking about cellular signal, right? So that basically what that does is it takes the cellular signal and turns it into Wi-Fi that you can use at home. So you do have to have a decent cellular signal to work, but we're not getting many of them returned because of that issue. By and large, we have distributed somewhere around over 5,000.
And do we get those hotspots back when the children come back face to face?
Correct. So when they come, well, not during this school year. They're keeping them during this school year just in case. However, when the agreement for the original batch will be up at the end of the school year, we'll bring those back in. And we are also working with T-Mobile on a grant program for a longer-term solution for students outside of the COVID situation that may not have internet at home for just homework.
And one quick question on that connectivity. I know we got an email personally that if we wanted to sell part of our lot to put up a tower, and I don't even know why it came to us, but seemingly that's something that's happening out there, that people are saying they're trying to put up towers and they will pay to put it on a particular property, are we getting that at the schools and all as well?
Yes, and the planning department manages that program, but without speaking in detail for them, I can tell you that we do have several tower and property leases throughout the district that generate revenue and bring that money back to the district. Additionally, the frequencies that used to be used for ITV, if you remember the old ITV days, we lease those to Sprint, which is now part of T-Mobile, and that revenue comes back to the district because we still maintain the license for those frequencies.
Okay, thank you.
And I just want to say, I really appreciate the fact that we do have the hotspots coming from a convention with the majority of them from the Panhandle, and them speaking on how they have a bus that's sitting there and everybody's driving the cars to be around that. So thank you for doing what you do.
Well, thank you.
Okay. Next question is for operations, approval to extend 180 days the RFP on-call security guard services. The first question, there are a couple questions here. First question is, could you please explain the need for private security and where we are using them? Mr. Newland.
Good afternoon. We've been using private security since 2010, started with Allegiant Security. In 2016, we went to Diamond Security, who we're currently using right now. Primarily, Diamond Security is used for the front lobby, basically and they do the interior and exterior coverage as well during their rounds. They also screen anybody that comes in the door, monitor the video surveillance, and also answer the phones and transfer calls. They'll also assist us during student services, during student enrollment. And then also approximately 5 times a year, maintenance will replace the switch gears in different schools throughout the district. In order to do this, you have to shut the power down. So when you shut the power down, any more than 4 hours, you must have security present to monitor the fire alarm, which is called the fire watch. So during that time as well, they're also utilized. Also during times, we also use security for the north entrance. We have classes that are held after hours as well. So those are the basic points when we use security in the district office.
Thank you. I didn't realize they were there. Thank you.
The next question is, why is this contract not running with our calendar year and budget?
Again, as I mentioned before, we started with security back in 2010 when the procurement did bids for a security company. It was originally awarded in January. They've been trying to align it with our budget. In fact, the procurement recommended they did a 180-day extension, but the intention is not to use the extension to the full 180 days. The idea is to complete a new contract that will align us with the budget coming up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is K2, approval to short-term incentives to address critical bus operator attendant need and for the expenditure to transportation services. Question is, how many drivers do we need? Mr. Lloyd. A lot.
Never have enough drivers. You heard Dr. Atkins just said that. Currently, as of this morning, we have 689 daily routes. Simply put, I need 689 warm bodies. That's a driver that I need in that bus to get the kids to and from work. As of this morning, we have 674 regular drivers. Thanks to HR, if they're still here, they actually just a week and a half ago, we put 30 substitute drivers to regular status, which helps us tremendously. And we have 65 substitute drivers at this time. That number's a little misleading, simply because we have part-time substitute drivers. These are the drivers that only want to work in the morning, want to work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays. They'll work when they have an opportunity to, and we can't do the job without them. So I would definitely not push them away. They're all heroes in my book. But a lot of them were given the opportunity to become regular, and they chose not to. So at this point in time, my people are working miracles. The drivers, the attendants, my dispatchers, the routers, they are doing miracles every day to get these kids to and from school. And where it's really going to show is next year. If we get all these kids back and they're at these bus stops, we are going to definitely be hurt if we don't start working on it now.
And can I just say for you to take back, at least from myself, thank you to all of them that work so hard to make sure that our kids are there on time and safe. And how are we doing, even with the shortage, are we doing well on that time tracking piece, I don't know what you call it, but.
Yep,
what you
we're at
see.
96% last week for on-time delivery in the morning, which is great because parents can feel comfortable that their kids are getting picked up and reported to school on time. In the afternoon, it's 85. It does take a dip. We looked at that. We look at it every week. It's tough with COVID. When you dismiss grade level at a time, the dismissals tend to be a little bit later, getting off those ramps in the afternoon. And in doing so, if you're late off that first ramp, we know you're going to be a few minutes late to the second. But overall, like I said, we seem to be doing a tremendous job.
Excellent. Thank you so much, and thank you to all of the.
Thank you.
It's K3, approval of the Safety Security School Hardening Grant. This question is, how are we with all our schools being brought up to safe and secure as per Parkland bill? Mr. Newland.
Just for clarification, the Florida Safe School Assessment Tool, they make the recommendation to secure the vestibules, and just so it's not a requirement to that, but through the Parkland bill, it's also, I consider it a best practice. So as far as the requirements of the Parkland bill, we are in line with all the requirements right now. The only thing we're working on currently right now is the ELISA law, which is addressing the panic buttons, which is coming up the beginning of this school year. So we are in line with that. Beyond that, we are looking to improve other past recommendations or requirements we have already met that are already in place to improve.
Okay, any other questions
Ms.
of that?
Giovanelli, any other questions?
No, I just had some people concerned over some issues that's happened at Fort Myers High, and so I think that's just, we want to make sure that it's, all campuses are safe, so people are worried about, because of the hospital, everybody's, that they've been to get on the campus a couple times since then, so, I mean,
May I
really
just ask a question, maybe this will help. I know that Mr. Newland worked directly with Lee Memorial Hospital staff right after that situation where that person entered the building, and then we just recently had a lockdown. Did that have anything to do with the new protocol that you all had put in place?
Actually, it did. So when that event happened at Fort Myers High School, we went out there immediately. We met with the head security with Lee Memorial Health Systems to establish a protocol when they have an elopement from a hospital that automatically the schools would be notified immediately, which would cause a lockout or a lockdown depending on the situation. So a memo or agreement was established with that. So as mentioned before, this happened just recently, which actually it worked. As soon as the school saw that, they immediately went into a lockout.
So in other words, the hospital was missing a person, they notified us immediately, and then we were able to implement our procedures rather than what happened that one time where the person entered the campus.
That is correct. We've made sure that we've identified the schools within that area, those hospitals we have in Lee County, so those are included or notified if that was to happen in the future.
And I have information from the Lee Memorial that I think they're moving their emergency to Gulf Coast, so that might eliminate some of the issues that we've had because it's been emergency for things, I believe, you know what I mean, like Baker Act and so forth like that. So I think if that might help us in the long run not to have so much activity at that old campus there at Lee Memorial Health.
Yeah, possibly, and we'll continue to monitor it, and again, with the agreement in place, that's going to help out in the future.
And along with Ms. Giovanelli too, when she's speaking of Fort Myers High, Edison Park Elementary.
Yes.
I would love to have a conversation with you after regarding that, because there's the safety of that school and those children.
And I have been working with the principal with that and Fort Myers Police Department as well.
Well, people are approaching their fence, so, and the babies are out there.
If you like, I mean, I can answer part right now. Again, working with Fort Myers Police Department, they have established a hot team concept, which is a homeless outreach team. One of the issues they're dealing with right now is because the displacement of the homeless right now in that area, and with the work being done at Centennial Park, that causes displacement in other areas of the city of Fort Myers. So working with Fort Myers Police Department, they have increased their patrol, being aware of those issues as well. And with the outreach team, working with social services, they're hoping to offer more programs to the homeless as best they can in this situation. You know, right now, this is a national epidemic with COVID right now. It's everywhere. So they're trying to do their best they can, but they are aware of it, and we are working with them with that school. I have talked to the principal as well. We've been out there in person, looking at security recommendations that we can help improve as well.
I appreciate that. Ms. Vaughn?
Yeah, I'm not sure if you know this off the top of your head. It's something that just came to me. Speaking of the safe and secure schools, are we at 100% in terms of switching out all of those locks especially in the schools where the door doesn't, where it locks from the inside?
I think you're talking about the Paxton going to the access controls.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure, well, I know we're not at 100%, and
because
Dwayne was here, but
a safe and secure, I know there were a lot of doors inside the schools that needed to be retooled with the locks.
Red locks, or?
the door's still locked. It's going from a Paxton system to a newer system. They are right now and working on getting all those transferred over to access control system. They still do lock. So we have been working with IT on this, but I can't tell you the percentage of how many schools have been done so far to the new system.
Okay.
I think it was red lock.
Yeah, I'm talking about the interior doors, the classroom doors.
The red lock system.
lock.
right?
Is that, okay, I just didn't know the term.
Yeah.
My knowledge, the red lock is complete. However, because there are a number of issues related to access control, we'd love to have the opportunity to have a nice comprehensive response so we could include any of the wonderful things that are happening from a technologist standpoint, as well as just to get a full clarification for maintenance on the status of all those elements. If that would work.
I think that would be a good update so that we can be sure that every school has the same technology and the same locking capacities.
Certainly, that is the direction we're working towards. Obviously, the facilities are of varying ages and whatnot, so we want to get everyone to the top capabilities. Brand new schools have a huge advantage over that piece. That's a big part of this mission. So certainly, we can provide some substantive information for the Friday weekly update if that works for you all.
Yeah, and obviously it goes hand in hand with security.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Ms. Gittens?
Just a quick, and this is not to answer right now, but first of all, welcome to Mr. Newland. I don't think, we're starting to see you more, and I don't think we've ever said that.
Thank you.
And in that vein, though, I would like to, in some point in the future, kind of see how, or if there's like a redistribution of duties and all in safety between you and Mr. Parfit, or because I know we knew that you were going to be working on COVID and that type of thing. How is that all working together?
Absolutely, we can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Atkins?
All right, so I'm going to move on now to K7, approval of the ranking of RFQ, architectural services for J Elementary expansion of MM Middle School. Question is, or suggestion, when these types of consent items are on the agenda, please provide all documents from the RFQ mandatory meeting, pictures, maps, and reports, or URL address to review them.
And the reason I brought this up, there was a question that we discussed at our last meeting, and some of the members said that they didn't see the same information that I had. And I just think it would be simpler to have it as a part of the documentation when we're approving something that has paperwork with it.
Okay.
Aren't these meetings public as well, right? Anybody can go and sit and watch these meetings?
Yes,
Or watch them, look on their computer if they choose to do so.
Yes, each of the RFQ meetings are public, but we can also work on something, a drive or something to share documents from them. So we'll work on that and come back with a.
Well, it's on, I know some of them are already on the website. You can go on and you can see it. And you see all of the documentation that was handed out.
Yes.
And that's all I'm asking, is to either give us a URL to connect to that, as opposed to having to sit down and watch the whole thing. I'm just asking for a connection to the documentation.
Okay.
Scott?
one more?
You could have spoke right there.
Aren't your sons runners?
One is, not
I
the
want to
old
speak
man.
by you.
Falls far from the tree.
They actually have that, it's called Bonfire.
Yes.
And these documents, if you go to leeschools.net and you go into each department and you go into business services and procurement, you can see where it lists active construction solicitations. You can click on there, it shows you all of the RFQs that are out. You can get some of the RFQ and the advertisement data. And if you sign up like I did, and now I get stuff from Michigan and everything, evidently Bonfire's nationwide, it can give you some of the details that have even passed. So we have that whole new procurement system.
All right, then I'll go ahead and move on to the next item. So, the question is, please advise and explain the expansion of MM Middle School. Ms. Ebaugh.
Middle School is being expanded by 12 classrooms or 264 student stations as part of the construction of Elementary J because they are on the same site. And you want me to continue the next question?
I can do that. The next one is 641 and 651 Sunrise Boulevard, Lehigh Acres. Why are we not using best practices as we have for other schools and having a site selection committee?
I think you get...
All right, the exact location, I just gave you the exact location of those two schools. That would be Miss Ebaugh. And then I went on to the next question, which is for...
The location is, as Dr. Atkins said, 641 and 651 Sunrise Boulevard. It's the site of the new that we broke ground on in September.
Giovanelli, that was your question. Did you have any other?
All right, so why are we...
Ms. Giovanelli,
What's
did
the
you?
additional expansion then? I don't, I mean, I thought we already did this. That's why why is this up again? That's all I'm trying to figure out.
So the expansion is, when we originally built the campus, we provided the foundation for and the ability to expand into a new building, but we didn't add the building at the time. Now, as we are building J, we are building that additional building. So the expansion is finishing out the construction of a building that was prepared for but not constructed with
So it was prepared for in September but not constructed, and now we are. Is that
Right.
what you're telling me?
Yes. So we had done the site work. We had done the planning for it. We knew where it was going to go on the campus, but at the time that we originally planned for the campus, we did not put in for the construction of that building. Now that we are building J on the same site, we have an opportunity to expand that campus and put in the building. So we are building that. It's a 12 classroom building at 264 student stations.
But I don't understand why we didn't do that in September. Why are we doing it now?
And my question along with that before she comes is that we were told that DOE would not allow us to do it. That's why we were doing 12 instead of 14.
Yeah, just to clarify, when you approved Middle School, you approved it for the bill that you currently have now. We designed the school, meaning the infrastructure, the electrical, the water, data, the drainage, the site development, to accommodate that future expansion that I've spoken to you in my monthly updates. Similar at Gateway High School, Jay even will have some expansion, as will the other schools that are planned. So when you folks decide to pull the trigger on that 12 classroom addition onto the building, we will be able to mobilize out there, and the vehicle that's mobilizing it right now is by you approving J Elementary based on the need and the requirement. We are going to do the extension of Middle School, or the new LAMs, at the same time.
But I thought we did pull the trigger in September. That's why I'm confused.
Can I just say, what we were told in September is that the building was for, can I please finish?
Well, can you wait to be called on, please? Because Ms. Giovanelli was speaking, and then they were going to respond, and then I'll call on you. I just want to make sure that we're keeping Everybody speaking? Thank you,
Correct.
Mr.
So,
I-
so it's part of the RFQ process. So when we decided to go out for J, we had the approval for J and the expansion of the seats, I guess are validated by the scattergrams and everything else these folks do. We did the RFQ. So now you're approving the rankings of the architectural team, the construction management team, and the building official team, so that now we can enter into contracts and get that ball going. To one, build J elementary and provide the addition onto MM middle for the extra capacity.
Okay, so
RFQ process takes about 5 to 6 months.
I think what they're trying to understand is, we had talked about the approval, the original MM was approved at the number that we built it. That's what the state had approved. Okay? And so now we're trying to seek approval to expand this building to meet growth needs while we're doing J.
That's correct.
So, we had, as Ms. Gittens had talked about, she talked about approval. Yes, that's correct. We had approval to build the school at the size that it was built, not to build a school at a larger size at that time.
Ms. Gaines, would you ask your
Well,
question,
and my
please?
question is, what happened between September and now that DOE is saying, yes, you can go ahead? We were told that, I asked when they first brought the project to us, what was the full capacity of the building, and I was told 14 something, but you were building it for 12. And I said, why the discrepancy? If it's replacing LAMs currently, and they have 1,400 students, why couldn't we make it for all of them? And we were told that DOE would not allow us to do that. So I don't understand how in a couple of months DOE has now changed their mind and said, yes, we can go ahead and do it.
So let me add a little something from 2016. So that's when the survey was approved by the DOE to build middle school MM. Had nothing to do with us ever relocating a LAM school, anything. It's additional capacity for the zone. So when that was approved in 2016 by the DOE, that was put into our capital plan. That was the school that was brought forward to the board to approve to be built. Now, since then, we've passed the half-penny sales tax. It's allowed some flexibility that we do not need DOE approval. We can go ahead now and build one, the addition, and two, J, which was not approved by the DOE. So both of those schools are being built with local money, whether it be millage or half-penny sales tax. And that's why we're able to do the expansion now.
And I'm sorry to be a pain about it, but I brought this up earlier when the construction crews were there, and I brought it up and said, why can't we save money by going ahead and adding that now? And I was told by Dr. Desamore that we could do it from tax money, and we didn't have to ask DOE, but it was still put off until later on.
Well, but remember, I also answered that a little bit further by saying that when contractors are in place, they have a schedule that they have to adhere by, and you have the subcontractors that come in at certain times. When we were having that discussion, all that work, a lot of that work had already been done, on that particular site, subcontractors gone. It would actually be, not as cost effective if you're bringing these people back, plus you don't know if you can schedule them appropriately. So rather than do that, we felt that it would be more efficient to do this in line with J, so you could use that contractor to plan the schedule for building that addition and also building that, building the J elementary school. So we had that discussion, and that's the reason.
Right, I know that we have, and I just think that if we presented DOE with 2016 data to build this school, that we could have gone back with the 2018 at least data before we broke ground to say our expansion, that we have 1,400 students now. We have a whole lot more than we had when we talked to you in 2016. So can we go ahead and just do this whole thing? Or go ahead and use it with the tax money that we said we could do. So anyway, thank you. I don't want to take any more time.
And at the end of the day, we're getting the 1,400, correct?
Yeah.
Thank you.
1,345 plus 264, I believe.
Okay, the next question, why are we not using best practices we have for other schools and having a site selection committee?
So Board Policy 901, Site Selection Committee, has everything to do with the Site Selection Committee made up of EDAC and DAC, helping us to select property to build future schools on. It doesn't have anything to do with where a particular school will be located in the district, but the acquisition of new property in order to build new schools. That's what Site Selection Committee is for, not to actually tell us which piece of our parcels should be the next place to build a school.
Well, that was, I must say, that's what happened before, but like I said, I will go on.
Dr. Atkins?
Let's see, the next is a comment. We need to make sure the community is very involved in this process. And Ms. Ebal, I think, is going to respond.
We are in the process of developing and memorializing a new project scoping and construction process. This new process will, one, identify how what is a conceptual project, that meaning it just a basic idea, matures into a vetted proposal. Then, two, how that vetted proposal becomes a budgeted project. And then three, how and when the many different people who are stakeholders of the project, including district and school project staff, the capital committee, cabinet, chiefs, and superintendent, and the school board, and the community participates in this process. And then four, how this process is communicated to all stakeholders. We are right now in the process of outlining what that project is going to look like, how this is going to flow, who is going to be informed of what, when, and with all the information, including the scoping material that Ms. Gittens, you asked about earlier. We look forward to bringing that process to you in the next couple of months as we further vet this out, having listened to concerns and interests from you as well as others. So we're looking forward to bringing that forward to you as soon as we have completed the process and then vetted the process with our internal stakeholders first, and then bringing it forward for your comment at that point.
Ms. Gittens?
Well, first of all, thank you for listening. And I would, well, I can make the comments when you bring it to us, but I do believe that all of us sitting up here represent some area except for those at large, and they represent as well. And I would truly hope that you would include the individuals that are representing a specific area to be involved earlier in the process, whatever the project looks like in its finality. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Atkins?
Okay, we have approval of Department of Education supplement spot survey remodel building at James Stevens International Academy. Question is, or request is, please be prepared to explain the spot survey.
So this spot survey is between James Stevens Academy and New Directions facility. New Directions facility, if you're not familiar with that name, is where we house early childhood, the Success Academy, as well as LAMP. So what we've been able to do is to take the underutilized school of James Stevens and take those two buildings that are on James Stevens' campus, but actually in our inventory created as part of the New Directions campus for early childhood. So it's basically taking a school that's set up right now to house 890 students down to 674 students. Now, we haven't been effectively able to get over 500 students on this campus in the last 5-6 years. So what it does for us in the long run is it doesn't show us with a lot of available capacity, which is currently still the East Zone. This school played a large part in our inability to get Elementary J approved in our last 5-year plan survey because of the amount of capacity that was available there. Even though when you talk about Lehigh Acres and where James Stevens is, unfortunately, it's still part of the same zone. So what this does is it allows our capacity to come down at James Stevens, helps us with our next 5-year plant survey by not showing too much available capacity at James Stevens, and allows these buildings to become part of the New Directions campus, which isn't weighted as heavily in our 5-year plant survey with Tallahassee.
Just gotta turn it on.
Giovanelli's question.
Ms. Giovanelli, did you have anything else regarding that question?
Actually, thank you for that clarification, because I was there, recently and saw all the empty classrooms and was very concerned. And it used to be a middle school, because I actually went there when it was a middle school. So my other concern really is, are we in need of more, maybe of a middle school versus an elementary school, since it's underutilized? Do we know that number?
I'm sorry, Ms. Giovanelli. Would you repeat that for me?
Well, I think the question is, are we in need of a middle school in that area?
We do see a middle school being built in that area in the second 5 years from 2025 to 2030. So there will be another middle school needed to service that area of Fort Myers and even the east side of Fort Myers.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, because I was concerned, so thank you for
Actually,
having it in the plan.
the closest middle school for Oak is Okamic now, for all that services those East Zone elementary schools.
Okay, thank you. Oh, Mrs. Gittens?
Just one more quick question, and I can get it later, but Mr. Rickenbacker was going to check on the fencing around James Stevens. I believe you said that you were going to check that.
We did, we saw it.
We all walked it.
Personally measured it that afternoon after your meeting. Everything is 6 feet.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do want to clarify one more piece on 9.01 with site selection. It does refer to the actual site in the first part of 9.01. Ms. Bruno, do you have any comment on that for us? I want to be certain that I'm describing this properly.
So 9.01, Section 1 states, a site selection committee comprised of 9 members total, 2 representatives from each school choice zone, elected by the District Advisory Council, DAC, and 3 representatives elected by the Equity and Diversity Advisory Committee, EDAC, shall review all proposed sites being considered for new school locations and provide comment on each individual site in an advisory capacity prior to a purchase of real property by the district.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I will just say, I was on DAC when the last time you did that, and it was not one of the existing advisory boards that reviewed it. We asked people in the DAC committee to volunteer from each one of the areas, and that was who sat on that committee. It wasn't like this advisory committee gave us feedback. It was individuals from them. So, anyway.
Thank you. Dr. Atkins?
Next,
That's it.
okay.
Is it right?
Have one more, I think. Please update us on the pre-K registration at James Stevens. Please remind us of the need to remodel. I'm very concerned that the school is underutilized. I think we can give a little bit more with Ms. Burr, Dr. Burr.
Good afternoon. Just wanted to touch base with you and make sure we understand the question completely. Right, currently at James Stevens, we are enrolling our 6th student. So we have a small group starting and getting, working out the kinks of a new building and a new program, and it's going really, really well. There's a great deal of excitement from parents who are registering for next year for that site. We're currently at 12, which sounds low, but enrollment is still low across the district because parents are waiting to see where we're going to end up with the whole COVID thing. We normally have an enrollment of 720, and we get the very largest amount, the bulk of those students in this window right now where we're doing the registration for next year, and we're currently only sitting at 227 applicants even, and 12 of those want James Stevens, the James Stevens site. I was not part of the original group that planned this new center, but I do know that it was designed with expansion in mind because it's one of the top 5 goals is to make sure we have the capacity to increase the number of students who can participate in a high-quality early learning program. And when I was brought on board in the beginning of the school year, I think the original plan was to have 2 classrooms open in January because that is mid-year, and you don't get typically a lot of students wanting to enroll mid-year, so we thought if we could get 2, that would be a good start. We feel lucky at this point to have the 6 because enrollment is significantly down. We're still hovering below the 600 mark for the entire program in all of our center sites. But we do have some plans in place, plans A, B, and C, that we're talking about how to utilize that building well next year. I can't promise you we'll be at full 13 classrooms, but we do have some plans in place to review with Dr. Spiro and Dr. Adkins and the team before we bring forward to you to kind of get your input on that. So we are planning to utilize it. It does look very sparse at the moment. I would agree with you. It's kind of an eerie feeling, but it is also giving us a lot of opportunity to really fine-tune everything on a new campus. So we're excited about it, and we do really expect it to be of great interest to the community in that area. Does that, yes?
So what was the enrollment for in 20 for the pre-K?
Overall?
The students you have now.
The students, we're hovering below 600, and we should be normally at 720 with a very robust waiting list.
Well, I meant just the pre-K itself. Just your don't you have a couple pre-K classrooms already?
James Stevens has 2 classrooms that were part of the SIG-4 grant. They're not really under the Head Start umbrella. I don't know if Dr. Savage can speak better to those 2 classrooms. I do know that this year they only opened 1 of the 2 because of COVID concerns as well. But in years previous, both of those were full.
Right. So right now we only have 12 students enrolled for the new.
Yes.
Okay. The new pre-K. Okay.
I mean, I think if you look overall in a school district, if you go out of our pandemic and get into hopefully a more normal time, our programs, whether it's VPK, it's Head Start, we really have, as she said, waiting lists and a high demand. The others, I've talked to you a lot about the kindergarten readiness concerns that we have. So we really do believe, I think, as we expand across the district under more normal times, that we will have not only full programs, but probably continue to have waiting lists, because I think that even with our plan expansion over the term of Envision 2030, it still doesn't meet the entire Lee County demand for these children.
And we have spoken to a lot of parents in this registration period who said they're extremely interested, but they don't want to complete until they see how COVID's going to transpire the whole process over the summer. And because it's non-compulsory education, and that's their babies, and in a lot of cases it's their first babies, and it's a little scary to send them to a place where they're not under their direct supervision in a time like this. But they are very interested and want us to keep their names, and they're going to watch what happens in the early summer and then contact us again to hopefully finish that registration and be able to get on the list to get a seat.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're moving on. Is there anyone has anything for good of the order? Half of our team have left. So, Dr. Atkins, did you have anything?
I don't.
Okay.
No.
Ms. Dupree-Bruno?
I don't, thank you.
Okay. Well, seeing that we have none, this meeting is adjourned, and thank you so much, and have a safe evening.